Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to your Virgo full moon report with me, Raphael from Radiant Reality. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of Radiant Reality. So for those of you that are continued subbies and my ride or dies, you guys know I absolutely love and appreciate every single one of you. If you're new to my channel or just passing through, it's lovely to have you. Stick around, see how you feel. With that said, I'm going to get into it. So this Virgo full moon happens on March the 7th, give or take wherever you are in the world, right? Whenever I'm talking about astrology, I use whole sign tropical astrology. So just so you know what house system and stuff I'm using. I always use house sign. Sometimes I'll use Placidus. Sometimes I'll use equal, but very rarely. So just to kind of put that out there to get you clear. Now, you always want to be, whenever you're talking about anything in terms of astrology, you always want to check in with your ascendant sign first, then your sun, then your moon. Now, if you're a nighttime born person, the moon's probably going to have a lot more sway in your chart. If you are a woman and you carry a lot of feminine energy, the moon is probably going to have a big sway for you. Just like if you're very solar or very masculine, or you are a man, you're going to feel your sun sign that much more. Something that's really interesting for me personally, I resonate quite a lot with my sun sign, and a lot of the things for my sun sign seem to play out quite literally for me, which I find really interesting. But that being said, my ascendant definitely fills in way more of the gaps. So it's just a really interesting way to observe it. So what I say to everybody is take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. These aren't going to be super accurate for every single person. They couldn't be, right? There's way too many people watching it, and there are way too many people in the world. That being said, you are in your life. You live your life every single day. So you need to work out how this is going to be speaking directly to you. And that makes you more of an active participant in the astrology and in this community and in the work that I'm doing. I'm no longer wanting to be that figurehead that's just, you know, everybody's like, yeah, you know, this is the word and this is the law. And I'm not doing all of that. What I'm doing is looking at the patterns and the rhythms and the cycles and seeing how they may play out. And we have to all be active participants in our own lives, in our own worlds, right? Just like I always say with doctors, yes, they know the human body, they know medicines and all the rest of it, but they don't know your body better than you do because you're in it. And so it's the same way with any of these divinatory arts, whether it's tarot, astrology, numerology, you know, all the things that I use at least, human design, whatever they are. Nobody's always going to know 100% what's going on with you because they're not you. All right. And therein lie kind of the beauty, but also therein lie the responsibility for you watching this stuff. Now, that being said, this full moon is falling at 16 degrees of Virgo. Now, 16 degrees, 1 and 6, in terms of a tarot card, the number 16 is actually the Tower. And so what this gives this full moon, all of the full moons actually that are falling at 16 degrees, there's a few of them. We've had already 3 of the new moons at 1 degree, that's the Magician. The 16th degree, that is the Tower, right? So what does that mean? This means that this full moon is going to, all full moons in general, have a revealing nature about them because the light of the moon is full, right? And the Tower card energy is very much a shocking energy. It's very much a powerful, potent energy of revelation. This is where illusions tend to crack, and then we see things exactly as they are, which is one of the reasons that the Tower moments that we have in life, and we all have them, right? Several big ones over a lifetime. You know, many sometimes over the course of a year, certainly smaller ones anyway. The reason this is important to grasp as a concept is because the full moon itself is a peak energy, right? This is where the moon is full. It's shining a spotlight in a specific area of our charts, which is through the Virgo guise or through the energy of Virgo. And what this means is something is being revealed, an illusion that we once believed is real. The Tower is coming down so that we can see what needs to be rebuilt on terra firma. Now, the Virgo energy in the tarot resonates to the Hermit. So what is the Hermit is about really taking time to seek out the depth of wisdom or the knowledge. It's also about quieting our surroundings, right? The Hermit energy is very much about withdrawal from the world to make ourselves quiet and silent enough so that we can hear our inner voice, our inner high priestess. If you've been with me, you know by now. The Hermit shows up when the high priestess, your inner wisdom, your inner intuition, there she is, was like she was waiting. I was just delving through the deck, right? The Hermit shows up when the high priestess has a message for you. Now, the reason this is important is, interestingly enough, the high priestess, not the moon in tarot, the high priestess represents Luna, all right? When the Hermit shows up and the high priestess has a message for you, she doesn't speak in words. The high priestess will never, like if you have something come and it's like in total clear words, that's something else completely. That's coming directly to you, probably from some higher intelligence. Your intuition, or the high priestess, she communicates through metaphor, through allegory. She communicates through feeling and impression. Now, as you already know, at the time of the full moon, energy is heightened, right? Why? Because our emotions are very much to the surface. The full moon, if you think about the moon being magnetic, right? It moves all the water on the planet. So that moon is activating the water in you, but that moon is shining its light through the energy of Virgo, right? So the high priestess, Luna, is shining her energy through the guise of Virgo, through the energy of Virgo. And so what this says is, make yourself quiet enough, right? Unplug from the world in some way, shape, or form. Become the Hermit so that you can hear the messages that I have for you at this moment in time. Who is Luna? Luna is the divine celestial mother, right? The moon is the divine feminine, just like the sun is the divine masculine. Now, the full moon is a full peak experience, right? So I always liken the moon cycle to a pregnancy. So the full moon is, when the woman is large and she's full, she's ripe to the point where she's ready to pop. It's where the fruit is ready to be plucked, right? This is why the full moon has tremendous energy. Now, this is a moon of revealing. It's a moon of manifestation. It's a moon of reaping the rewards of reaping the rewards and the fruits of the labors that you've already put out into the world. Now, it is a revealing energy, and Virgo is very much about precision, right? It's about really being precise and exacting. This is where we get that stereotypical, oh, Virgos are perfectionists. It's not. They just have a very precise and exacting nature. And so, if you don't know how to work with that, or you're a little bit sloppy, or you're a little bit sort of rough around the edges, it can come off as perfectionism for sure. Now, this really does, because Virgo energy is also about refinement, right? It's about taking the nutrients out of something and leaving and discarding what has kind of served its purpose. One of the reasons that the Virgo has the cloak, right? That's one of the Hermit, should I say, has the cloak. He's discarded all of the worldly stuff. He doesn't need to do the peacocking. He doesn't need to do any of that, right? All I need is the simple basics so that I can get into myself and hear what needs to be heard. Now, as it's a Virgo full moon, it resonates to the energies of purity, right? Something that the High Priestess really does talk about a lot: service, cleanliness, and orderliness. These are all things that Virgos need, right? Doesn't have to be, when I say cleanliness and orderliness, I'm not talking about clinically stringent. I'm talking about order, right? So if you're anything like me, I have a bit of an organized chaos set up. That's just how I am. It's an energy that I definitely exude, right? If you were to walk into my office, this looks great. If you see my desk, it's like, and I always know where everything is. Always, I know exactly where everything is. We might all be feeling those energies around this time because they're going to be a lot more to the surface. It's a great moon to do some kind of delving into your own health, especially your gut health, right? And true health, true well-being, it's said certainly in medical circles, actually starts in the gut, right? Interestingly enough. And it's also said in some schools of thought as well that your gut is actually the first brain that you have, which I find really interesting, because obviously when babies are, when they're sort of first formed and out into the world, what's the first thing they do? Everything in the mouth, right? They're just trying to get it in my mouth. That's all they're concerned with. Now, this is also a good time to work on your nervous system and your biological rhythms and systems. So things like your circadian rhythms. What are your circadian rhythms? This is how you rise and fall with the sun, right? So this would be a really good time to maybe try and regulate your sleeping pattern. If it's been all over the place, this might be a really good time to do a reset. Now, I always, if you've been with me long enough, whenever it comes to lunar transits, I'm always looking at the day before, the day of the event, and the day after, right? There's a reason for this. One day I'll do a separate video about that. I think it will be, hopefully it'll be quite informative for you guys. But that for me is always the window that I'm working with. And because this is in the sign of Virgo, some kind of detox or cleanse would be really good to do right now. Now, I don't want to hear all of the science bods and so, well, you can't really detox and you can't really cleanse. You can detoxify your body, right? If you do a fast or a cleanse of some sort, you are going to rid your body of things that it doesn't need, waste, impurities. What is Virgo all about, right? When you think about the digestive system, it pulls the nutrients and it discards everything else. Why does it discard everything else? Because it's either not useful or it's toxic to the body. So it's eliminated through the waste, right? This is one of the reasons, like nowadays when you hear on the internet, people are like, oh, well, you can't detox anything. And it's like, okay, well, your body does this literally every moment of every single day. So yeah, probably can. Anyway, soapbox moment over. That being said, Virgo moons are the most powerful for this kind of work, any kind of cleansing or detoxing. Now, you can start from the outside in, or you can do it in a 3-part series, right? So the day before this full moon would probably be a really good time to do some kind of place cleanse, right? So get rid of items, objects, etc. in your space. Tidy it up, zhuzh up the energy of the outside, right? The full moon, where it's actually exact, maybe this is the time to go within because you can find more answers because the energy is illuminated. And maybe the day after you do something where you're maybe doing some kind of observation, or maybe where you're doing some kind of physical release, which would be like, maybe you're eating a simpler diet, maybe you're eating something a lot more natural, maybe you go plant-based for a day. And when I say plant-based, I'm not talking about all of the really weird, yucky stuff that is coming out. I'm talking about actual plants, vegetables, fruits, flowers, herbs, stuff like that. I'm not a big fan, apart from sugar. I can't help it. That's my vice. I'm not really a big fan of things like, I like to cook from scratch. I don't like sort of ready meals and stuff like that. So, maybe get into that. Massage would be a really good thing to do around this time. And specifically, something that would be really good or beneficial for you at the moment would be lymphatic drainage massage. Now, if you've got any health concerns or issues, please check in with your healers, your therapists, your doctors, etc. Because this energy is about precision as well. And we'll talk about this when we get to the breakdown for each signs, because this is going to be better for some of you for certain types of, getting to the bottom or the nitty-gritty of. Now, in terms of the full moon, as I said, this is that time where the fruit is ripe, right? Where the baby is ready to be born, as it were. And the reason this is so important is because in terms of spiritual circles or even magic, this is a time where there is palpable energy in the air. And there's a reason for this. Our energies, our emotions, our waters, everything is closer to the surface at this time. We bleed more under a full moon. That's one of the reasons that astrologers say if you're going to have surgery, try not to do it on a full moon, because we tend to bleed more. Closing wounds is not as easy. It's one of the reasons we get so restless around full moons with our sleep, or if you're anything like me, you know, like you really feel those lunar transits. Like a new moon, like you see these bags, wait till a new moon. You'll know when it's a new moon and I'm filming, because you'll see bags that you could take the shopping home in, trust me. And that's because I was born at almost a full moon. So I feel that transit a lot, right? So pay attention to the phase of the moon that you were born at and see how you feel at the opposite phase to that. If if you're attuned and you're sensitive, you might notice, wow, you know what, I didn't realize I was so affected by this. It was probably about 8-9 years ago that I figured this out. And I was like, holy crap, that's why. Like, I look at the new moon and it's like, at that time, I look gaunt, like the bags under my eyes, everything's really, ugh. And then at the full moon, like as the moon grows and she gets like to that peak, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, good. I feel good again. Yeah, I tend to look a bit more filled out as well, kind of like right now. All right, so in terms of its aspects, what are some of the aspects that this moon is going to be making? So when we're talking about an aspect, we're talking about how the moon connects to another planet or another point in the sky, or maybe an asteroid in the sky. So this full moon is going to be trine to Uranus, which is in the sign of Taurus at this moment in time. It's going to be in Taurus for at least another 2.5, 3 years at this point. So that's an energy that we're used to. This is not necessarily a rare transit, but this full moon in specific is happening in a very tight trine to Uranus. So bear with me, just open this up. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, it's happening in a very tight trine to Uranus. So the moon is at 16 and the Uranus is actually at 15 degrees of Taurus at this moment. So it's gaining some much needed kind of support here. It tells me that whatever changes are required, the actions could have faster results and I don't want to, I hate the word consequences, but sometimes it's the word that I reach for. Consequences sounds too heavy and too negative, but what I'm saying is the changes that you make or the revelations that you have under this full moon are revealing. Something that's shared with you through this full moon at the moment could manifest results, ideas, ripples, consequences, etc., a lot faster than we think or than we expect, because Uranus is involved. It is the unexpected. So whenever you kind of plan to zig, Uranus will zag. We don't really predict it. We just kind of look at it and say, okay, there's a wild card element here that we may not necessarily know all about until the moment that it hits. Uranus, interestingly enough, Uranus energy is the Tower, but it's also the Fool card. It kind of depends where you're at and the state of your life and how honest you're being with yourself at any given moment of how the Tower and the Fool can show up for you. It might also be that there's material or tangible real world, things that manifest because of this, because it is a full moon. This will definitely have a practical element to it, and it's also likely to be whatever your future plans are, you start to see steps or at least a path revealed to you at the moment of how you can make this a reality in a sense. Now, this full moon is in a square to Gemini. Now, this is some kind of, it's a change of pace, I think, that is kind of not expected. Now, the thing that really strikes me about this is this aspect to Mars. It's actually Mars is playing the anchor to a T-square. So a T-square is an energy of tension. Now, remember, whenever I talk about squares, consider a square an energy or an experience that pisses you off to the point where you say, no, I'm not having this experience again. It makes you get proactive enough to say, this doesn't work for me, so I'm going to make something happen in order to not have this experience again. Mars in Gemini can definitely bring, disputes, challenges, aggressive clashes with words, etc. A full moon is a time of heightened energy and heightened emotions. So it wouldn't be a surprise if some challenging situations arise because of what we're saying. Now, Mars is in the sibling sign, right? And we're looking to Mercury, because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, and that's where the full moon is happening. Mercury's in Pisces. Mercury doesn't necessarily do very well in Pisces. It's actually in the sign of its fool, right? And one of the reasons for this is Mercury rules Virgo. It's right across the sky in the sign of Pisces, a watery, mysterious kind of realm where, you know, not all is quite as it seems. And on top of that, we've got Neptune, which has been in Pisces for what feels like fucking ever at this point, right? Really kind of distorting things. And so for that reason, Mercury, and therefore us, we're not really thinking at our best because we're not clear on things. Now, the full moon is bringing a spotlight, but the ruler of that full moon isn't 100% clear. So because emotions are heightened at this time, just be mindful that there can be some kind of miscommunication. The energy of Virgo is definitely a lot more precise. It's definitely a lot more, what's the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, it's a lot more precise, whereas Mercury is kind of, doesn't really have any precision because it doesn't have any substance. Sorry, the sign of Pisces, and that's where Mercury is at the moment. So this can be a really good time for dreaming things, for creating things in the mind, but it might not necessarily be the greatest time to be getting clear on certain things. Now, the challenge there being, Virgo is, you know, that's where the full moon is. So just work with it, flow with it as best you possibly can. Now, one of the ways that you could look at this is the full moon is in Virgo, which is a mutable sign. Mars is in a mutable sign at the moment because it's in the sign of Gemini. And then on top of that, the sun and the moon are always opposite at a full moon, is in the sign of Pisces. And so our energies at the moment, while this is a full moon, this is a full moon of change. All right, like this is definitely a full moon of change. Now, Mars is action, energy, passion. Gemini is skills. And so one of the things about this that I've said to a lot of people, try doing a Rubik's Cube. You might get really pissed off with it and chuck it on the floor a couple of times, but it will definitely solve that using your hands and your brain at the same time. Anything that's going to coordinate these two things around this full moon period, the day before, the day of, and the day after, might actually be really good for us. Now, in terms of its T-square, it is a lot of mutable energy. Action is required where the moon is in Virgo, all right? But because you've got Mars playing the anchor, you are going to have to find a way to navigate this. And maybe this is one of those moments, let's say, you know, you and your friends are all off to a party, one of you's the designated driver, you take a wrong turn, and before you have a chance to say to everybody, I've missed my turn in, you just, you know, fling the wheel in the car and everyone's like, so this could be one of those moments. Now, the sun is going to be sextile to Uranus, right? This is hidden flashes of, or sudden flashes of brilliance. If you haven't checked out the possibilities, you know, of what this might mean for you, be open to it. So at this time, you know, things might come unbidden. They might come through daydreams, through reveries. They might come through sort of what seems like an irrelevant conversation. You could end up having like a really amazing kind of realization at this time. So, you know, don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to open things up. Now, Saturn is going to be trine to the South Node. This is an interesting one because this same day that this happens, the same day of this full moon is the same day that Saturn moves into the sign of Pisces. Now, because it's sat at this point of the full moon, it's at 29 degrees of Aquarius. It's about to step onto that 0-degree platform of Pisces, right? So it's such an interesting energy. We've got so much mutable energy going on in that T-square and with the moon itself. And then we've got Saturn, planet of structure, rules, regulations, you know, establishment, you know, things that are hard and solid, moving out of Aquarius, where it's been strong now for the last, you know, 2.5 years and 5 years, if we call it, because it was in Capricorn before that. It's moving, it's changing its sign into the sign of Pisces, right? So it's still in a trine, even though it's a dissociated trine because it's in Aquarius. But I found that really interesting that we've got that changeable energy happening while so much mutable energy is in the sky. There might be an element of this whole sort of, you know, full moon period that feels kind of, You know, is it just me, or it's like, you know, when you get off of a ship, you know, I did this in Ibiza with some friends about 5 years ago. We went for a party boat. And, you know, you just get used to it while you're there. But then when you get off, like you're walking down the road like this and everyone's like, are they wasted? Like, you on drugs? And it's like, no, I've just come off of a boat where, you know, where you've been for the last 4 or 5 hours. So you kind of get that. That is the feeling that I get from this. Some area of our lives is going to feel like where it's been sort of controlled for far too long. And now those outside influences are giving us a break, right? And because it's connecting with the South Node, and Saturn has an eliminative effect as well, because it's connecting with the South Node, this full moon marks a moment at which something comes to an end that has felt heavy for quite some time. Maybe you haven't been able to put your finger on it or kind of be precise about what it might be, but now you're ready to say, okay, you know what, I can let that go now. I'm actually ready to phase that out. So while this aspect is taking place, you know, I feel like it is the last gasp of some element of our lives. So very, very interesting. With that said, stay tuned because we are going to get into all 12 signs. So welcome to the sign breakdown. So we're going to be looking at your ascendant first, then your sun, then your moon. Be sure to check them all out so that you can get a clearer and more complete picture of how all of these are going to speak to you. So for Aries and Aries rising, sun or moon. For you, this full moon is happening in your 6th house, right? So this is really something about your health, your vitality. It's about getting a serious, maybe even very precise look or insight into how your health routines, how you're looking after yourself on a day-to-day basis, either is or isn't working. Remember, the 6th house is a maintenance energy. This is how you care for and look after the things that you have in your life, whether that's your body, whether it's your mind, whether it's your spirit, whether it's your car, your house, etc. Right? The 6th house is actually the natural house of Virgo, right? This is the sign, the Virgo is the 6th sign of the zodiac. Now, your routines and your rituals, how you do things on a day-to-day basis or level is going to be really under the spotlight here. And this might actually reveal to you some part of your routines or rituals throughout the days, the weeks, and the months is either contributing to really good health or not, as the case might be. All right, so this is really asking you to pay attention to your body. It's really asking you to pay attention to your complete self, but more on a day-to-day basis. Now, the full moon is in a T-square, remember, with Mars as acting as the anchor. So you've got the sun and the moon on opposite ends of the sky in Pisces and Virgo, respectively, with the Mars energy in the sign of Gemini acting as the anchor there. So it is worth mentioning that there might be a general feeling of kind of not discontent, but it might be like, you know, when you have one of those like irritations, but you can't really put your finger on what it might be, because this is happening through your 3rd house, your 6th house, and your 12th house. So the stuff that's happening with the sun and the moon, this is in your 6th, 12th house axis. And what that is your maintenance axis. The 12th house is how you really look after your deep inner self, right? Your subconscious, your psyche. It's all about the intangible aspects and elements of who you are. And then you've obviously got Mars in the 3rd house of Gemini, which is really kind of, it's causing some kind of potentially, touch wood, and I hope I'm wrong on this front, it is a potential. I'm not a doctor, I can't give you medical advice. It's just how some of this stuff might show up. This could be some kind of inflammation in the hands or possibly in the wrists or the fingers. Remember, because Mars is in Gemini, so there might even be a tenseness to the shoulders at the moment, and it might be you kind of feel tense and you're holding it all here in your upper body, but you don't really know where it's coming from. This is one of the reasons that this might be a really good time to do some kind of talking therapy. What I've said here for a lot of you is a good soak in a tub, right? A gorgeous jacuzzi, gorgeous jacuzzi session would absolutely be welcome at this time. Also, some kind of journaling and or hypnosis might help, because remember, you've also got Neptune in the sign of Pisces at the moment as well. So right now there's Neptune, the sun, and Mercury all in your 12th house at the moment. So the deeper elements of you are really being highlighted. For those of you that have got pets, especially for those of you that have got lost pets, if you've lost a pet recently, what I mean by this is, you know, the cat's disappeared for a few days, or, you know, has been gone for a week or whatever, or a dog or something got out of its cage and disappeared. This might actually be a time where one returns. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you kind of, you know, have them that come back. I would mind animals and water at this time as well. Maybe meditate on, you know, yeah, like find some time to do some kind of meditation as well. Now, your full moon trine Uranus is happening in your 6th, 12th house axis as well, right? So you've got the full moon in the 6th, you're between your 6th house and your 2nd house. So Uranus in the sign of Taurus, right? I love this for a cash boost. I really like this for your earning potential kind of shooting up suddenly. Maybe a financial opportunity arises quickly. It's also a fleeting sort of energy. So, because remember, it's just a temporary energy, right? The full moon doesn't last for very long, first of all. And second, Uranus tends to be a fast acting energy. It's not necessarily known for the long haul. It's about breaking things apart to reveal what is the truth now so that we can move forward and build something on a better foundation. That's that Tower card in motion, effectively. The sun is definitely bringing your attention to, the sun is sextile to Uranus. And this is, in fact, before we get into that, one thing that I do want to mention is the sun is bringing your attention to what's been, to what has been. And it's also seeing you needing to prioritize your own healing before you think of others. So this is one of those times where Aries should be being selfish. I hate that word should, but you know what I mean. Aries can be selfish at the moment and, you know, kind of get away with it. That's where, you know, you really can be putting the best sort of focus right now. Now, the sun is sextile to Uranus, which is interesting as well, because remember, a sextile, it's an opportunity. All right, so this might be that an old idea, 12th house, something from the past, is coming back in, is potentially reignited. And because of whatever it is, especially if it's got a technological element, you might be learning to use some kind of new technology that ends up getting you a better pay bracket for yourself. So your earning potential could go up because of this. Finally, Saturn trine the South Node. This is happening between your 11th house of friendships, friendship circles, right? Your communities, your larger world communities, and your higher, or should I say longer aspirations for your life. That's happening between your 11th and your 8th house of finances and resources that come to you through other people. So what this means is friendship and money might be on the cards. Now, I always say don't mix business with pleasure or maybe friendships, etc. But actually, this could really be a time where you can find a way to mix a friendship with money or a joint endeavor of some kind that could be quite lucrative. Saturn is a very spiritual energy, and the South Node is also spiritual, right? And but they're both eliminative in their energies. And so with that South Node over there in Scorpio in your 8th house, this is really you releasing and relieving yourself of your secrets, your self-sabotaging tendencies, your hurts, your wounds from your past. Then it's like you're able to move forward in a much clearer way because you know what you're ready to let go of. It could also be, you know, that there's a release of a debt of some kind. Let's say you borrowed money from a friend and they say, you know what, I don't want it back. You needed it at the time. I have it to give. And this could come through maybe somebody that has loaned you money, a benefactor or a helper of some sort, has basically says, you know what, I'm going to forgive that because things are good for me right now. Could be the other way. It doesn't have to be a monetary debt, but it might be, because remember, 8th house is also debts. Could also be the release of something that you feel indebted to and now ready to release. So this could be where, you know, as an example, let's say you've always lived in a certain place because you thought, oh, you know, I want to be here just in case my family ever need me. Well, that feeling of being indebted to your family or to your, you know, caregivers or whatever, that might be gone now. That might, you know, this might be that last sort of final thing where you say, okay, you know what, I'm ready to say I've paid my dues now and I'm ready to move forward. Finally, it might be very telling that Saturn is last aspect in Aquarius is going to be a trine to the South Node, because this really is the release of something. All right, before we start, as always, I would like to bless my decks of cards with all forms of love, light, peace, prosperity, and abundance. And I pray that the messages that come through are ultimately clear and concise. They help us all on our path to our highest vibrational good. So for Aries, your card for this full moon is the Knight of Pentacles, right? Look at that. The Knight of Pentacles is about what you can see in the distance that you know it's going to take time, effort, and energy to enact. And this, you know, I mean, yes, we're talking about the full moon here, and the full moon's message to you is this is where the real work begins on the plans, the goals, the hopes, the wishes, and the dreams that you have going forward for the future. The other thing with this Knight of Pentacles, if you are called to travel in some regard, this may be a time where you kind of go for it, and it will be through that sort of travel or interaction with a bigger or further out place that actually changes your perspective on something. And I wonder if this is something like that. It's like maybe you have a tie to the area that you live in for a certain reason, but through this full moon, you're like, you know what, that debt to my people, to my place, to my tribe, to my heritage, my lineage, my parents, my whatever, it's now paid and I'm ready to move. All right, for Taurus, for you guys, this is happening in your 5th house of self-expression, creativity, children. This is a lucky energy. The 5th house is really a place of authenticity because it's about how you truly express yourself from that deep sort of place, and it is a pleasure house. So this could be moments of pure joy or self-expression that basically are illuminating to you that it's okay to have fun. It's okay to be a little bit wild. It's all right to be creative. It's also maybe highlighting to you that you need to bring more creativity into whatever you're doing. Now, Mercury is the ruler of your 5th house, and it's in the sign of Pisces. And so what this suggests to me, especially because it's bringing that sextile energy, this is a time for you to dream. This is a time for you to have ideas. This is a time for you to let sort of creative ideas bubble up from the subconscious and kind of just say to yourself, you know what? I'm not a painter, but I suddenly feel to paint. You know what? Go out and buy yourself a little paint set and just do something, right? If you feel the need to doodle, if you feel the need to write, but you're like, you know, I'm not going to sit here and write a novel, but write whatever comes to you. Let your creativity really run free at this full moon, because you could get some really amazing insights from it. If you have children, maybe they're more in the spotlight of your life at this moment in time. This is also the space and the house of speculative gambles. So this full moon may possibly present you with an opportunity to get in on something before it becomes big, right? Maybe you get a little tidbit of information and you're like, you know what? I think maybe I'll put $50 on that crypto. You know, it's just having a punt. You don't have to put your life savings into whatever it is that's suggested. Now, the full moon Mars/Neptune and Sun T-square, for you, these energies are happening across the 11th house, the 5th house, and the 2nd. And so what I put here for you guys is that there's a feeling like you're going for or acting on is that it's at odds with one of your creative visions, right? So it might be that funds are limited, and so it's like, you know what, I want to do this thing with my friends or my people, or I want to go away, or I want to do this, but it's like the money side of things is kind of what gets in the way. You might feel bogged down by someone or something, and it might be feeling restrictive. Now, remember, a square energy makes you uncomfortable enough to do something about it. So follow that. Now, the full moon is trine to Uranus, which is in your sign at the moment. This is happening between the moon in the 5th house, Uranus in your 1st house, which has been completely revolutionizing everything Taurian and everyone Taurian as well. So it's blessing you with this ability to get quick information. It might also see an opportunity for you to present yourself in a new way. I like this for a lot of you kind of doing something a bit radical right now. So it's also maybe even something that feels or looks out of character to the people that know you, right? But it's bubbling up from within you as something that feels like, I need to follow this, right? So and again, especially if it's something of a personal creative expression, maybe you're changing your hair, maybe you are going to get your first spray tan, maybe you're starting a new health regime. You know, if you're doing that, it's probably going to be a bit more active. Uranus technically rules your 10th house because it's the ruler of Aquarius, and Aquarius for you is the 10th house. So it could be that an international link or connection of some sort comes in as Saturn leaves your 10th house. So something in that career sector, your legacy in the world, could really come up for a change right now. For some of you, I also get the impression that you are probably ready to be seen in a new way, or something big that you're doing for your future. Now, I've put here that this is a transpersonal planet, so don't be surprised if twists of fate see you having a lot of fun on something that's totally outside of your remit. So you could be doing something that really for you, you're just like, I am having a fucking blast doing this. I don't care whether other people like it or love it or not. And to be honest with you, I know a lot of you said that you love the new format and stuff, and I absolutely asked because you guys are my audience and I always want to be respectful of the changes that I'm making. But that's kind of how I felt. I'm not a Taurus, obviously, but it's kind of how I felt with the new stuff that I'm creating. Like for the, not ever, but for the first time in a long time, like I really don't give a shit whether anybody else likes it or not. I'm loving doing it, and I hope that is coming across in the work that I'm presenting to you guys, because it is for you. But I've taken that kind of, oh, you know, what are people going to say? Oh, Raf's doing more astrology or da-da-da-da. That's gone. I really don't care. And, you know, whether that does or doesn't, you know, whatever it says, I'm not bothered. And I kind of feel like this is what you guys are going to be stepping into with this full moon. Saturn will be trying the South Node between your 10th house of career and public status and social status and your 7th house. So whatever issues you've had in relationships, or, you know, this could be a time where they start to ease. It might also see that the foundations on which you build a greater sense of connection and commitment start to make themselves known. There is a release here. There's a change, there's an amicable path forward for those of you that are, you know, in relationships, maybe they're coming to an end. Because it is a trine, and it is with the South Node, it might be that whatever is coming to an end, it goes out in a way where everybody's kind of not satisfied, but it's like, you know what, I can let this go on a better sort of note than maybe people could, you know, usually might be able to. As Saturn comes into Pisces the same day as this full moon, I like this for connections for those of you that are single, making friends, lovers, and, you know, like, and vice versa. So there could be a release of a burden in the work sector that's felt really heavy. And it's like now you're doing this and you're allowing yourself the breathing space that you need in order to kind of expand, because you're letting go of a really heavy weight. It might also be that whatever's happening in the relationship, you're kind of like, you know what, I can't really deal with that right now, so I'm just going to throw myself into work. So there's a few ways that this can, you know, there's always many ways that this stuff can show up for us. So the sun in a sextile to Uranus, right? This is happening between your 11th house and your 1st house. So the sun is in Pisces in your 11th. A mentor pushes you to do something radical, or maybe even an authority figure says something to you that kind of, it awakens something in you to kind of say to you, hey, listen, maybe I've not been paying as much attention to what I need to right now. And it could be that they're giving, you know, maybe the kick that they're giving you up the butt, it's coming from a real place of love and compassion, but it also highlights the undeniable truth to you. So you're able to kind of look at what they say and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, that's that, you know, like we've all had it. Like if you've ever had a mentor, a coach, a therapist or whatever, you know, sometimes they hit on something that's, you know, it's really precise and you're like, oh, yeah, I felt that one. Right, but you've got to own it. This could be that. I like this for coaches, mentors, benefactors, or even a sibling supporting you to break into something that you're not really sure you can do. So you are able to pull this off, absolutely, but there's maybe like a little bit of self-doubt in there. So your card for the full moon is the Page of Pentacles. So if you're planning to launch a business, a product or a service or something of that nature, The Page of Pentacles is telling you to get the on with it. It's also a message. I love the Page of Pentacles because this is basically saying you can learn whatever you need to. So whatever skills, courses, things that you're ready to embark on that you think, you know what, I'm scared to do this, it's out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to go for it. The Page of Pentacles is saying go for it. Absolutely do. You're going to start small, you're going to plant this seed now, but it's going to grow over time, right? So really nice, very interesting. So for Gemini, you are a sibling sign of Virgo because you're both ruled by the planet Mercury. So for you, this form is this full moon is happening in the sign of Virgo, which for you is your 4th house. Full moon is so the full moon, should I say, the 4th house, home, property, family, real estate, deep psychological, deep emotional nature. Also end of matters, right? This 4th house is actually the house that Luna rules. This is her home. And so a full moon in the 4th house may very well draw your mind to domestic matters, to domestic necessities and pursuits. You might start to get really proactive about cleaning and clearing and making sure everything's categorized and neatened up in some way, shape or form. This might be, you know, I know a lot of Geminis are organized chaos as well. All the air signs, or should I say Gemini and Aquarius, tend to have a little bit more organized chaos about their space. Not so much Libra. Libra's like, oh no, I couldn't do anything nitty or gritty or whatever. You may find that this 3 days you go on a bit of a spring clean, right? This, in fact, this is kind of perfect for it. Isn't that really interesting as well? And as spring approaches, the full moon in Virgo, the sign of cleaning, cleanliness, etc., sort of shows up. I find that fascinating in a sense. You might sort of find that you need to streamline things and that you're actually ready to get the space, you know, the space in the home a bit more clear. Solid things that need to be taken care of. A moment of light is shone into your home sector. Your emotions, all of our emotions are going to be a lot more to the surface. And so you might be feeling things at a much deeper level at this time. It's a full moon, it's in your 4th house, right? So this is your deep emotional, your psycho-emotional nature. You know, this is your stuff from your family, your heritage, etc. So this could, you know, come up in a big way. Another way that this could show up for you, because you are a Gemini after all, this could be a full moon gathering that you have at your home, and it could be so fun, right? And the more sort of off the cuff impromptu, the better. So that T-square that's happening between the sun, the moon, Mars, and you know, with Neptunian energy kind of thrown in there at the same time. When and where do you belong to yourself, right? This is happening across your 1st house, your 10th house, and your 4th house, right? So the reason I say this is because Mars is in your sign. So that's 1st house energy. Then you've got the sun and the moon in your respective career and your home sectors. So the question really becomes, when and where do you belong to yourself? How do you give yourself time in all the things that you have to be out there for the world, and in here for, you know, your family, your kids, your whatever, all of the rest of it? Where do you exist in all of this? And are you taking time for yourself? This is the thing, you know, Mars is, it gets a bad rap, but, you know, Mars can do a lot of things. In the 1st house, it can make us more selfish. And this may actually be a very good thing for you that's being highlighted right now with this full moon, to say to you, where is the me in all of this? How do I exist for myself? How do I show up for myself in all of the things that I'm expected to be for everyone that isn't me? I also get the sense that you're considering for yourself, like, what you want for the longer term and for the scope of your career, like life. Now, both Jupiter and Venus are in your 11th at the moment. So this is going to see you making connections, being really, yeah, so what I've put here is being rather than using an interface. So this is about you becoming that focal point. You know, one of the things that I mean, I'm not a Gemini, but this is to give you an example. I like to, you know, and you'll have to permit me, guys. I apologize if I always feel like I'm talking about my own life. I believe in giving examples that people can actually use. And the only way that I can do that is if I've had a direct experience of it. There's no point in me giving you, oh yeah, you know, that woman down the street and this guy across the world. Like, that doesn't really help unless it's a pertinent example. If I'm giving a personal one, it's to kind of show you, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That might, you know, I know how I might be able to use that. So in terms of being an interface rather than using one, as an example, you can imagine I meet hundreds of, at this point, I've met thousands of people. And every so often when I meet people or I have a reading with them or a session with them, something will click and I'll be like, oh, I need to connect this person to that person. Some of you have had this where I've said to you, you know, is it okay for me to reach out to this person and give them your contact details? And, you know, off they go and they build relationships of their own. That's how you become the interface. All right. I hope that gives you an example. I also like this for meeting somebody through your work or someone that could be either a regular feature of your life that now becomes something more. So that could be really nice. Full moon trine to Uranus. So the full moon for you in the 4th, Uranus is in your 12th house. Old familial ties and connections, people you grew up with as a child, or maybe people that had a really big emotional impact on you in your formative years or your, you know, experience of that sort of younger side of your life. It might be that this brings up questions for, you know, brings up questions for you of home, but more importantly, who feels like home? Who feels like tribe? Who feels like family? These are the things that are going to start to become probably more important to you around this time and from here on in. It's a very powerful energy for psychic moments and visions, especially because it's Uranus. So this is stuff that just comes to you unbidden and you're like, okay, can I say that? Yes, absolutely. Randomly bumping into or hearing from people from your past, also very possible. Saturn trine the South Node. This is happening between your 9th house and your 6th house. I mean, this is a release, right? It's a release of a work burden. And the reason I say this, like, if you could work for yourself and like, so if you work for yourself and if you've got employees, or you've got people that work alongside you, it's always the case, amicable partings of ways could be happening at this time. It might also be the, we've seen because it's squaring the nodes, and it seems like it's been forever at this point, right? I'm so glad that Saturn's coming out of this. What that Saturn squaring the nodes, I feel, has done is simultaneously pulled apart our reality and stitched it back together at the same time. And so suddenly it's like you're having to really just readjust to everything constantly. I mean, that's going away because obviously Pisces is coming into, Saturn's coming into Pisces on this same day. The challenge that shows up with that is from the 23rd of March, Pluto's going to start to square the nodes, right? So, and maybe I'll do a separate video on that alone, because that in itself is a huge, huge topic. Now, the sun is also going to, so yes, it's, sorry, I forgot to mention, it's a divine touch of some sort that is, it's bringing like the softer side of Saturn. I think this is what we're going to see as it moves into Pisces. But for you, because it's a trine between the South Node and in the 9th and the 6th, I actually like this for a clientele or a work connection changing or shifting in a way that actually feels more supportive for you for a change. Gemini spends a lot of time supporting other people, building bridges for others. And sometimes you tend to leave yourselves out for that because you're so in the melee of connecting and communicating with people that you kind of forget, actually, I have needs. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'm human after all. So the sun sextile Uranus, this is happening between your 10th house of career and your 12th house of past, the hidden self, self-sabotaging tendencies sometimes as well. old skills and connections suddenly become useful. There's a big focus on career right now with Uranus in the 12th and the sun connecting to it. Your authority figures are celebrating you for your past deeds. Don't be surprised if something, you know, shows up for you. If you're nominated for something and you didn't even put your name in it, somebody else has nominated you for it. There's a sense here that, you know, you're really starting to get recognition, and it's for things that you've already done. So if you work for yourself, it might be an idea or a product of some sort that you've made already. And it's like, now I'm ready to do something with it. Now I'm ready to put this out into the world. So for your card for the full moon, you've got the Ace of Swords. So this is effectively a fresh start for you, but it's a fresh start in how you see yourself. And it's a fresh start in really owning the things that you want. And, you know, your sign is one of doing this, right? You deliberate. And I think this is actually bringing you the clarity that you need to make a choice or a decision based on you and what it is that you want for yourself. For Cancer, my lunar brothers and sisters, this full moon is happening for you in the 3rd house. Now, a 3rd house moon makes you more communicative than usual. Instead of sort of just feeling your feelings, this is going to give you a chance to actually express them, to share them with people. And this is a rare thing, right? Cancer is so empathic and emotionally astute and aware that we can kind of forget that not everybody else, I say we, because obviously I have moon in Cancer, so we kind of forget that other people don't really process emotion in the same way, and sometimes we get a bit peeved with the world and they don't realize that something's wrong with us. Right? And hey, listen, I own my stuff, right? One thing about me, when I'm wrong, I will put my hand up and say, you know what, I'm wrong, I got it wrong. I try to be very aware of what my flaws and my shortcomings are. And I can definitely recognize that Cancerian trait in myself. So I own it, right? There's no point in doing anything else. So it might be as well that you've got something really deep that you feel you need to say that comes from the heart, right? I like this for a lot of you. Because it really gives you the chance to express how you feel, to say what you feel instead of just thinking it, or instead of just feeling or internalizing it. And this might be a rare window if you're cross-watching for your Cancerians, whoever they might be in your life. This gives you a chance to really pay attention when they start telling you what they feel and how they feel it and describing it. You're getting a very deep insight into what this person's feelings are usually, but you know, the depth at which those feelings are felt, that you probably don't usually get. So pay attention, all right? There might be a need for some of you to clear something up. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you go on a bit of a cleaning rampage at this time. Why? 3rd house is your environment, all right? The moon actually exalts in the 3rd house. This is where Luna does some of her best work because it's a form house, right? The moon rules the body, the form. It rules the environment. It rules the hoi polloi. Whereas like the sun is, you know, the things that are up there, the authority figures and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. In terms of things that you're clearing up, which could look like having some challenging conversations, possibly, this is your luminary at her peak. So you're more emotional than usual, but you're also able to share what's going on with you. And I actually think that's quite important. You've also got Mars in the 12th house at the moment, and it's been there for what feels like ever for a lot of you, I'm pretty sure. You might have felt sometime that there's kind of like an annoying itch that you just can't get to. I don't know if you've ever had this. This happened to me when probably from the ages of like 14 to 16. I used to literally, I kid you not, I used to have this feeling. It was like my ribs on the inside were itching. Like I felt like I wanted to put my hand inside and just have a really good scratch. Very weird, but yeah, I'm still here, so I will. All right. The other thing that I've got here as well, this might be, maybe you've been really enjoying a good sexual appetite for some time, because the 12th house is bed pleasures, right? It's the bedroom. It's where you sleep. You don't just sleep in bed, right? Although at this point, TMI, you're one of the lucky ones, because the moon is said to exalt in the 3rd house. So it's also bringing some opportunities in your locality or your neighborhood that could really be coming up. Now, the full moon with that Mars, Neptune and Sun T-square that's going on, this is happening in your 12th house, your 9th house and your 3rd house. So the real sort of consideration that I feel like you're having here, it might open up a powerfully spiritual or a deeply profound psychic energy that happens. And it might provide you with a need to say something or do something that doesn't really, it's not either well received or heard. Now, this isn't about you expressing your feelings, as I was saying earlier. I actually think that's a really good thing. But maybe it's not heard, maybe it's not received in the way that you would like it to be. So, you know, we can never really be in charge of how people receive us. We're only in charge of what we say and being honest with what we say. You might also feel a push to take a certain action outside that seems like a rash decision. And this is, when this kind of thing happens, I often say to people, it's like you're listening to something that only you can hear, right? And so your intuition is probably pushing you or propelling you to do something. And maybe people around you are kind of like, I don't know what you're doing, but I feel like you're just trying to burn your own world down. What the hell? So just something to consider. Full moon, trine to Uranus. Now, in fact, let me just backtrack, because remember, a square is something that makes you uncomfortable enough to do something about it. Between your 12th house, this is your past, right? This is, you really needed to observe how something was or is. It's also the intangible world. Then you've got the 9th house. Both of these are very spiritual energies. And so this could bring you a very powerful psychic insight or spiritual revelation of some sort. But with that 3rd house energy as well, which is where the moon is, your emotions and the things that you're speaking out, maybe someone says to you, you know, this is a bit heavy, or actually, I don't want to talk about this, or whatever it might be. Because it's in your 3rd house, you have to get this out. And the reason I say this is, this is throat chakra stuff. Whatever it is that you choose to bite your tongue on or to hold back, you will store in your throat chakra. Don't do it to yourself, all right? Even if it's not greatly received, don't worry about what other people think or feel about what you're saying. If you feel it bubbling up from within you and it's like, I need to say this, I need to get this off my chest, then do so. Full moon, trine to Uranus between your 3rd and 11th houses. So the full moon is getting a really nice connection from the Lord of shock and change and awe. Don't be surprised if you start to understand your own innate fears in a new way through some kind of open conversation or honest sharing. Maybe even something that you don't expect to say. And that might be where maybe the feeling comes from with that T-square as well. Maybe something that you say you don't expect to say, and it just kind of comes floating or flying out, right? And then someone's like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like everybody just looks at each other blinking, because it's like, I'm not really sure sort of where to go from here. Some real headway could be made on your future goals and plans right now. And I like this for you, getting a really deep insight into how you can use technology, new websites, new platforms, etc., for really launching something out into the world, or being a part of something like that has a community element to it that really builds or grows in some way. So if you've already got something like this up and running, this is actually a really good time to think about how you can perfect that. Saturn, trine the South Node between your 9th and your 5th house. This is a release, and for you, this is a belief that's become a limiting belief, or even a spiritual consideration that you're letting go of. This is where you kind of say, you know what, I'm ready to release this now, because I know that it's getting in the way of what I'm trying to create or what I'm trying to do. In a connection to Mercury and Saturn, there's a chance to talk about what you no longer believe or resonate with on a certain path. So it also allows you to speak honestly and openly. I really like this as well for getting good or solid answers from anywhere in the legal sphere that you need to. So let's say, you know, you've been waiting for an answer on something, or, you know, you've needed information or whatever, and what you've got so far has kind of been a little bit all over the place. This could be where it actually comes through and you get an answer that you think, yes, you know what, we can work with that. Sun sextile to Uranus between your 9th and your 11th. So an honesty and a push, right? Excuse me, sorry. So I'm calling it this because it feels to me like this might be a teacher or a guru or someone whose opinion, maybe at least professionally, is one that you really value. Maybe they give you a deep insight of some sort that kind of, sorry, I've got something on my chin that's driving me bloody nuts. Maybe they give you an insight that really sort of rocks your world in some regard. The reason I say this, right? So we're looking at the houses of your 9th and your 11th. So, and what we're looking at here is the sun, right? The sun is authority figures, people that you look up to, people that you consider that are like, you know, royalty or celebrities, etc. And that's making an aspect from your 11th house of benefactors, higher goals, aspirations, visions, and dreams to your 9th house of higher philosophies and beliefs, right? So again, this whole thing about your belief system and your belief structure is shifting and changing, but it's making life better, but it's doing it in ways that you're kind of like, I didn't realize that I didn't buy into that school of thought anymore. Or, wow, you know what? When I search my feelings for that thing that I always used to believe, I just can't find it anymore. Something's shifted. And I really feel like for a lot of you, it might be that this person, this authority figure, mentor, guru, teacher, coach, etc., they give you some new perspective that really kind of makes you go, whoa, I hadn't even considered that. There's an element of something that you decided deep down you wanted could suddenly start making itself known. I love this. All right. So, you know, like when you think about something or you start to work on manifesting something and then it starts to show up on your timeline and you haven't even searched for it, right? Like that happens to me a lot. Or there'll be things that I you know, have sort of inner spiritual dialogue with the universe about, and then it will start to show up, or I'll start to hear conversations about it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, right? This is obviously a go. I really like this for you guys. And I actually think that this full moon in that regard could be quite supportive, as long as you're willing and able to kind of say what you feel. And I mean literally that, say what you feel. Don't feel it and sort of clamp down and hold it on the inside of your little crab shell. Say what you feel, get it off your chest, get it out into the world. You'll thank yourself for it later, even if it is a little bit jarring in the ripples that it creates in your, you know, personal little pool. Your tarot card for this moon is the 8 of Wands. This is communication that comes from a distance, right? And with so much energy sort of happening in your 9th house, it does kind of, yeah, I think for so much energy happening in your 9th house, it does suggest that maybe the conversations or the information that you're getting comes from a distance. Now, interestingly enough, this is a card of mentors and teaching as well, especially when it comes up with certain types of cards. I'll save that little tidbit for when I put my next tarot course on. I can't give away all my secrets for free, darling. Come on now. So I hope that helps you. For Leo, my ascendant brothers and sisters, this is happening in your 2nd house of money, finances, and resources. Money is definitely going to be on the cards, especially because there's a lot of energies happening at the moment with your 2nd and 8th houses, right? Your 8th house at the moment is packed. You've got the sun there, you've got Mercury there, you've got Neptune there. So there's a lot going on. Now, back to the full moon. This is wealth and material sector, and it's getting a good look at, right? This is where you need to be stringent. It's where you need to be clear. It's where you need to be honest. The full moon is bringing a highlight to your money and your resources. And with a cluster of energies over there in the 8th house, this is also how money comes to you through other people. So this full moon in your personal money sector, this isn't just about your finances. This is about how you feel about yourself at that deep level. It's also about how you really value yourself and what you value. And right now, that might not necessarily be anything tangible because Mercury, the ruler of the full moon and your 2nd house, is in the sign of Pisces. So this is right, which is actually other people's money. So either which way, your mind is definitely on resources at this moment in time. As this full moon it's a full moon in Virgo, you are being invited to get a lot more stringent about your resources and your finances. It's shining a good light on what you're making, how you're making it, what you're spending your money on, and what you're using the cash in your life for. Now, with the full moon, Mars, Sun, and Neptune sort of T-square energy. This is happening between your 2nd house and your 8th house, so your money and other people's money, and then the 11th house, which is where Mars is at the moment. Now, a T-square is complex by its very nature. Mars is acting as the anchor there in the 11th, right? Pulling that focus and that energy to your higher goals. When I say your higher goals, I mean the things that you want for your future, the places. This isn't like your 10th house is your career, but your 11th house is where you want that career to go in the future. So this is also the gains that you gain from your career or your business. Luckily, Neptune's not as involved as it could be. But as it stands, this is about money. It's about the give and take of finances and resources. There's an element here of group associations because it's in the 11th house. Mars is the ruler of your 9th and your 4th house. It's bringing negotiations up and potentially highlighting where you're being either too emotional or emotionally attached to something that you're creating, right? Like there comes a point where the artist has to disconnect from the work if they want to be able to sell it. There comes a point where you know that product that you've created where you kind of have to say, okay, you know what, how other people use the thing that I've created is none of my business. My part as creator, creatrix, etc., to push this thing out into the world, my part is done. The Sun, your ruler, is in the 8th house, highlighting your own fears and how those fears are actually getting in the way of you moving forward. This is a big thing for Leos at the moment, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. I think for a lot of you, you will be really acutely aware at the moment of what you are afraid of. And the reason this is happening is because you've got such a concentration in the 8th house, which is where you store your fears and your traumas. And what's happening is you're getting a deeper understanding of what they are. And once you really know what they are, you can see all of, let's say you've got this fear, right? And all of these different things, all of these different behaviors and decisions, etc., that you make are tied to those fears. And once you see those core fears and you understand what they are, you might have a moment where you think, shit, this is where things have really been getting in the way for me. Now, shameless plug, but I am going to say, if you have money blocks, money worries, challenges, or issues, the Abundance Block Smasher session is absolutely for you. This is you, me, tarot, energy work. We're going to get into the depths of what is going on with your money, and then we're going to smash those blocks out. That's how I roll. If you've been in Mindset Magic, it's kind of similar to that, but it's a lot more personal because it's just you and me. For the full moon in a trine to Uranus, the full moon is in your 2nd house. The Uranus energy, which has been there for a while now in Taurus, is in your 10th house. New and exciting ways of making money could be highlighted to you at this time. Saturn is going to change signs today. So the same day that we're having this full moon, Saturn's moving into your 8th house. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, great, that means he's going to start to restrict how we make money from other people. Or Neptune, that has been fritting away and having, you know, you get big chunks of money or money comes to you and it just falls through your fingers and you're like, what happened to my cash? That's Neptune in the 8th house, especially money that you make from other people, right? Whereas when Saturn comes in, and Neptune is a dreamy energy, so it's like you have these big grandiose dreams for your finances and your resources, or how you're making money or pulling money from the world. But when Saturn comes into the 8th, it's going to say, okay, I see your dreams. I understand what you're trying to build. Here are the action steps. This is what you're going to have to do to make this thing a reality. So when Saturn comes into the 8th, yes, it's going to be heavy. Yes, there are going to potentially be some burdens that show up, but it's also going to show you how that growth and expansion that Neptune is having you dream into being is going to happen by the practical steps that you take. Your success on and it's going to give you the foundation and the platform that you need in order to raise your vibration. And by doing so, Uranus, as the ruler of your 7th, is basically saying how you this is how much support you've got from places and spaces that you didn't even realize, right? Like there's things working in the background on your behalf, or maybe even people. You know, this could be a friend comes to you and says, you know, I've really, really been praying for you recently because I know you've had a hard time with this. Maybe, you know, any number of, that's an example. Saturn trine the South Node. This is happening between your 7th and your 4th house. I see you releasing some kind of fear at this time. And so what's happening around your familial ties and connections, this could be, let's say, even if it's the loss of a family member, it's the fear that you've got attached to that, which is being blasted away. It's being released. It's being let go of. While it might be very sudden and shocking, and that is a possibility, right? It's Saturn, it is a trine energy. So the potential that somebody could be leaving the family is there. Now, because it's in a trine to Uranus, right? Remember, though, that the Scorpio energy with that South Node is in the 4th house. Saturn is, in the old world, is death, right? It's release, it's elimination. Yes, Pluto does the same thing, you know, to a much more intense sort of frequency. But this actually feels for me like, you know, when you hear those stories of like someone was here 1 minute, they were fine, they were talking, they were laughing, they went home, they went to sleep, and that was kind of it. That is, you know, as it's also trying to Mercury, the ruler of your 7th and your 11th, is a, you know, that in itself is a stabilizing energy for your negotiations around work, around finances, etc. It also might bring an understanding of what you're so emotional about. So you might have a realization through a conversation where you're kind of like, okay, that's what's been at the depths of all of this all the time. Now, when we care a lot about something, we tend to get very emotional about what it is or isn't doing, or how it is or isn't working or happening in our lives. And for that reason, this is a heads up. If something gets you and you get really emotional about it, ask yourself, why do I care so much about this? All right, that's the thing you can latch onto to follow the process. Okay, so Sun sextile Uranus. Sorry to mention, I just want to backtrack. If you are releasing a family member, it is a trine between Saturn and the South Node, but just the way those energies combine, you know, if I touch wood, because remember I'm a Leo ascendant, so I hope this isn't the case. But if somebody is leaving your life, it will be, you know, it may actually be more of a mercy than anything else. So I can give you a really clear example of this. When I was probably about 17, I'm sure it was between 14 and 17, I had a friend, and his mum, she had 6 kids, right? And one day she was like, I don't feel very well. She went to the doctor, and he said, you know, okay, we're going to have to run some tests. So over the course of a week, they'd run all of the tests and stuff. And it came back and he said, I don't really know how to say this to you, but your body is riddled with cancer and there's literally nothing that we can do. We don't even know really how you're still up and functioning. Within 2 weeks, I kid you not, she was gone. Now, as awful as and shocking and as horrible as that is, Imagine if it were, you know, sometimes we see people that have cancer and it's this really long, harsh, you know, drug-fueled sort of heartbreaking experience. I've been through that myself with a cousin. It's just horrible. And if the option is to have it be really quick and short and shocking, and it's like, shit, I got to get my head around this, I would prefer that than the latter. And so I know this is a really heavy subject, guys, but this is a part of life, right? Think about the world, or the way that we come into the world. When you're born, you don't come in with, you come in screaming, having been pushed through a fucking pinhole, you know, all of your bones crushed and squashed and everything covered in all kinds, right? And think about the women that are birthing us into the world and the incredible pain and traumatic experience that birth is. Before you've even fucking started life, you know, trauma is a part of your experience. And so we have to stop demonizing death. It's not easy. I don't sit here saying these things because it's like, oh, this is so easy and light and fluffy to talk about. I just don't demonize it because it's a natural part of life. It's a natural process. We live, hopefully, many years, a full life, and then we die. That is kind of the long and short of it. And for me, this Saturn trine the South Node, I would prefer it to be quick and shocking, and then this ugly, drawn out, horrible, sad, heartbreaking process. You know, that's, for me, you want to know like what one of my fears is? It's that. I don't want that. I really don't. Not for me or for anybody that I love. And I've already done it twice. It's not easy. And that, you know, just anyway, enough. Sun sextile Uranus between the 8th and the 10th house. This is all about your career and your resources, money that you're making from or through other people. Now, remember, with a sextile, it is just an opportunity. So you are having to work this. It might even be that a boss or, you know, something that you're doing, it's like you're forced to grow, you're forced to level up. And you're like, oh shit, this is really uncomfortable. It's that moment just before the roller coaster goes over the thing, and you're like, ugh, you know, your gut goes, but you're like, woo, right? You're like, anyway, now. This could be kind of like that, but it's with the career. Now, remember, Uranus is, I mean, it's in Taurus, so it's a fixed energy, and the sun is obviously your ruler. So I wouldn't be surprised if this brings some kind of experimental tech or methodology or knowledge into your work that might really see fast and exciting changes happen. This might be the only time that you see that level of zingy kind of change, because obviously after this, Saturn's going to move into your 8th. So whatever comes, it will come over time. All right. Your tarot card for this is the 8 of Cups. You are releasing fears, you are walking away from stagnant emotions, and you are addressing imbalances in your emotional world and self. And this processing, interestingly enough, is the number 8, right? The number 8 in tarot rules the strength card, which rules Leo. It's the 8th house stuff, really, that you're going to feel more as this full moon hits, which is really interesting because the full moon is in the 2nd house for you. But that conglomerate of planets over in the 8th, Mercury, Neptune, the sun, and, you know, this same day as well, Saturn, that is what's really kind of being highlighted here for a lot of you, I think. And I think that could actually be an interesting consideration. For Virgo, you are a lot more visible because this is your full moon. This is in your besides your birthday season, when the sun comes through your sign, you're never more visible than when the moon is shining its spotlight on you. So this is happening for you in your 1st house. You are going to be seen. If there's something that you want to share with the world, a product, a service, a business idea, you are more visible, right? So if there's something that you want the world to see, focus their attention on that thing, but allow yourself to be highlighted because you are being seen more. Interestingly enough, though, your focus, because the ruler of the moon, Mercury, your ruling planet, is in the sign of Pisces in your opposite house in the 7th. And so everybody else's focus is on you, but your focus is on your partner, your relationships, your one-to-one connections, how you interact with people on that one-to-one level is where your focus actually is at this moment in time. So the full moon, Mars, the T-square that's being set up by the full moon and the Mars energy, this is happening in your 1st house, your 7th house, and your 10th house. So respectively, your partnerships, connections, one-on-one relationships, etc., and your career. All of these are vying for your attention at this moment in time, and your collaborators and even your fans or your audience. These things start to collide. The tension that's in the T-square is being anchored by a planet that is in a mutable sign and doesn't necessarily do great work there. So Mars is kind of pulling this energy over in your career sector, and Mars is kind of saying, well, listen, yes, you've got this stuff going on for yourself, and yes, your relationships are doing this, but what's happening with this? What's happening with your career? This is important right now. This is potentially where Virgo has a need for control, not out of, spite or desire, but of a need to manage the chaos of life. And so when they don't have that, they can get quite that's where, every sign gets fractious with something. And this is one of the things potentially that makes you guys a bit more fractious. It might be showing you, this T-square is probably showing you that you don't have any control at the moment, and allowing things to unfold as they need to and as they're going to might be the best way for you to get out of the feeling that you're feeling. And it also might highlight to you a lot about yourself and yourself within relationships. So it's showing you how the world receives you, the 10th house, through your partnerships and relationships and connections, the 7th house, and how you yourself are shifting and changing into, or because of that knowledge, the 1st house. So for you guys, I think the T-square will do what it needs to do. For the full moon trine to Uranus, the full moon in your 1st house, the Uranus energy in the 9th, this is a viral making connection. If there's something you want to put out there, this is the time to do it, right? If you're a content creator, put something out. If there's something that you're studying, or especially like if you're researching or doing a PhD of some sort, this could be a time where you discover something. It's like, oh my gosh, like in the course of my studies and my research, I found this, and it could be like a breakthrough energy. It could be a breakthrough discovery. If you're studying something in general, this could be one of those moments where all the pieces finally come together and you're like, okay, I understand this now, right? Like your mind just kind of goes, and you're like, yes, now I get it. Uranus is bringing you a change of mind and beliefs, and maybe that you need to see things from new perspectives, and it probably has for a while. There's still 3+ years, well, about 2.5, 3 years left of that transit. A trine is an easy aspect, so this could be a realization that comes internally, and it might come above and beyond what you currently believe, and it's almost like it comes so easily that you just kind of step into it rather than feeling like I have to do this, or I have to get it. Saturn trining the south node between your 6th house and your 3rd house. Both Saturn and Mercury are getting a trine to the south node, and Saturn is about limitations and release, and the Mercury energy is obviously your ruling planet. This I have seen as a last gasp, right? This is because it's this same day, Saturn's going to move into the sign of Pisces, right? So as I've said to everybody, Sky Papa is about to get drunk, y'all. Daddy is going to the bar. He's going to have himself some drinks, and we're going to see what's what. But this is a really good day for if you want to start therapy, especially because remember, whenever we look at an astrological event, that event represents a moment in time that's going to unfold. And so this could be a really good time to imprint universal energies with that kind of thing. Especially because this is happening between your 6th and your 3rd. So this is allowing you to speak and to communicate, and the 6th house, healing, right? So talking therapy, some kind of way to heal and cleanse yourself from within, that comes through speaking and sharing your mind. Sun sextile to Saturn between your 7th and your 9th house. So I put it may very well be, and it tracks, that this moon is the most healing moon for you. Apart from probably Aries on a physical level, this might have a lot to do with your relationships. This could be apologies that are said within relationships, maybe an apology that you receive, maybe an apology that you give that just mends something. There's an opportunity to really create some kind of healing energy within your life. And that will come through your partnerships, through your relationships, through the way that you connect to others. I really like this for some healing and soothing words through the connections that feel somewhat spiritual. So, you know, soulmate energy, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, somebody that you feel really connected to. Could, you know, maybe you say something to each other that just replaces, and, you know, it's not on us to heal other people, unless you're a therapist or a counselor. And even then, it's not your job to do someone's healing for them. The same with the work that we do as tarot readers, astrologers, numerologists, healers of any kind. We facilitate the healing. We don't make it happen, right? Same with Reiki practitioners. I've been doing energy work, especially through Reiki, for a long time now. And one of the fundamental things that they teach you from the very beginning, and it's, you know, you have to grasp, you're not doing the healing. You are facilitating that. You are a vessel for the healing energy, and the recipient is responsible for their healing. And so this kind of feels like a mending of rifts between people. It comes because you both say, you know what, I will own what I am responsible for, and I will let you own what you are responsible for. As the ruler of your 10th house and your 1st house, Mercury in Pisces is asking you to dream big in your career and your personal life. And it's bringing a sense of needing to get clear about what relationships in your life are actually building you up, and which ones have become stagnant, and which ones are maybe holding you back in some regard. So your card is the Knight of Cups. Look at that, right? So an offer, an opportunity, or even a declaration of love, or an apology, some kind word, some piece of a personal puzzle that you need is now given to you, and it allows you to kind of say, okay, that's what I needed to hear. And, you know, the really interesting thing about this is, you know, with the way that synchronicity works, I'm sure you've had this, right? Maybe sometimes you're thinking about something really heavy in your mind, and then a stranger comes up to you, maybe not unbidden, but like you walk past somebody and they say something to you and you're like, holy crap. Or, you know, you're talking to somebody, or you read something and it says exactly what you need to hear in that moment. I really love this for the healing that you need coming in from the world. And there's just 2 crows flying past as I was talking about this. And it comes from the world, and it allows you to kind of say, yeah, you know what, that's what I needed to just put something back into place so that the healing can begin. I've given this example before, and I'll give it again. It's kind of like, you know, when a bone is broken and it's like they put it back together and they're like, it's just not mending right. And it's because there's like one little fraction of a hair's breadth of bone that is out of place, and then they put it back in, and then the whole thing just, right? This full moon feels like it will bring you that. All right. So for Libra, this full moon is happening for you in your 12th house. These are definitely a 12th house moon. A 12th house full moon is definitely not for the faint of heart, right? They do tend to be a lot more intense, but I've got to be honest with you, I really like a full moon in the 12th. The reason being, yes, they can be emotionally intense. Trust me, I'm fully aware. Remember, my 12th house is Cancer, so I'm aware, trust me. But I like these because it's like shining that cosmic light deep into this part or the space of yourself and your psyche that tends to be hidden from you. And so what tends to happen here is you get like shine. It's like opening your personal closet where all of your gnarly little demons and stuff are. and getting a really clear look at what they actually are, right? And you know, it's like when, you know, you hear like the bleh, bleh, you see the shadow on the wall and it's a fucking chihuahua that comes around the corner right, with the tongue hanging out to the side. Do you see what I mean? Like this is this full moon can be a revelatory one for that reason. It can really help you open up that sort of deep danky space within you to really get a good idea of what's going on there. Now, more importantly, Virgo is about healing and cleansing. Scorpio is about sort of purging, right? So, and Virgo in its precision, this really gives you an ability, or at least an opportunity for right now, to cleanse that deep inner sort of sanctum of self, to get into the mud and say, okay, you know what is the stuff that I need to change? What are my hang-ups? What are the things that really are getting in the way of what I would like to be creating at this moment in time? The deepest recesses of self are revealing something to you that potentially you've been afraid of for quite some time. So this could be, for that reason, you know, it could be quite powerful. Now, the moon is the ruler of your career, and so it could come as a shock, especially because it's connecting to that Uranus energy, which is in your 8th house, right? So there's a lot going on here for you where you could be really starting to understand, wow, this is how I've got in my own way, or this is how I've held myself back. So it's a moment of really sort of pure honesty if you're willing and able to do the work. Now, the full moon is opposite the sun, as it always is when it's a full moon. And it's in a T-square with Mars and kind of with Neptune, if you want to count it. It was a very wide orb. Now, this is happening in your 12th house, your 6th house, so your maintenance axis, right? Your 12th house is the maintenance that you have to do on the internal self, whereas the 6th house is the maintenance that you have to do on the external self. And with Mars in your 9th house really kind of anchoring this or pulling attention to that, there's a sense here that your personal belief structures are starting to shift and to change. And they're shifting and changing because you're starting to see how maybe these things that you've held on to for a long time are no longer viable, right? So matters of past relationships and how they've impacted, you know, your current or learning style or relationship style may really come up for you here. It could be tensions right now are revealed where someone who isn't your biggest fan is being revealed. It might also be where you're where maybe you've been afraid, right? Uranus in the 8th house, giving you random flashes of psychic energy and precognition. But this might show you what you've been afraid of. And it's kind of like, then when it hits almost, it's like, oh, you know what? I don't really know what the fear was about, right? What was the worry or the stress about that? It's giving you a push to release something and maybe even to have the hard talks, right? It's Mars in Gemini after all. And it might see you really get clear on what you need to adapt or what you really need to lead the talks around when it comes to money and relationships. So there's a lot in this. Now, the full moon is trine to Uranus in that 12th house. Remember, the 8th house energy is all about other people's money. It's your deep psychology. It's your wounds, your fears. It's your sexual, like your primal sexuality. It's not like the 5th house is like romance and pleasure and, you know, we're having sex and we're, you know, it's all of that and it's nice. The 8th house is like that deep sort of like, I look you in your eyes while we, you know, anyway. Right, your 8th house is that. Do you want to get into bed with it? Right? Do you love this thing enough to kind of be that attached to it? The 12th house is the deepest recesses of your entirety and yourself. So if your 8th house is your wounds, your traumas, and your fears, your 12th house is those things that are sort of, or it's the silt that's left behind and the programs that run unchecked because of the stuff that we have in the 8th house, right? It's a very deep energy. So the fact that you've got these two kind of interacting in a sense this might be where you really get rid of, where you're ready to digest or excrete, get rid of, 8th house, eliminate, allow to die, a really big, powerful personal fear of some sort. So, and, you know, this might be a realization that comes and you're like, shit, I need to, you know, I really need to get that gone. Is a powerful psychological shift where you're really needing to step forward and also to release ideas that limit your self-expression and your self-care. So this, you know, for you guys, this one can be really, really deep because there's a lot going on here anyway. And for you, it's hitting in some quite sort of what I would consider to be quite critical spaces. And I say critical in the sense of, hey, you know, things that need attention immediately, as opposed to like, you know, oh, critical, that. It's, you know what I mean? It's not that. All right, so Saturn trine the south node between your 5th house and your 2nd house. I like this because this is you starting to understand that if you're spending money on experiences, if you are losing resources for things that excite and enamor and awaken you in some way for you to really kind of move forward, this is actually very beneficial. Laying down some financial burden, releasing some sort of hard, you know, maybe, you know, for those of you that are parents, this could literally be you saying to the kids, hey, listen, you know, I love you, but I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to keep sort of, you know, where financial boundaries have been blurred, this could actually help you make them simple. Sun sextile to Uranus between your 6th house and your 8th house. So the sun is in the sign of Pisces at the moment, right? So that's really giving you, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, it's helping you draw your attention to health matters, health, vitality. Also, it might be how you interact with group settings, right? And there's a reason for this, because it's a good time for you to start sort of feeling around or seeing what you're ready to release when it comes, or to look for a new community that actually supports you in some, you know, in a better way. And, you know, again, to take the, yeah, so what I've got here for you is if a superior at work offers their help and assistance, it's a rare moment of favor. Take the opportunity, right? So in terms of community, this might be a really good time to start building it at that base level in your job, in your work, and how you show up in that space. It might require some effort on your part, and it might unfold the blessings of this over time, right? The opportunity is highlighted or presented and revealed, but it's you that's got to set it into motion. I hope that makes sense, because I kind of tripped over. I was trying to read something and say something at the same time, and clearly my brain wasn't having it. Your tarot card for this full moon is the King of Swords, right? So the King of Swords would be a specialist. This is someone who is amazing at what they do, someone that really knows their proverbial shit. And also with the King of Swords, this is also probably revealing to you where if you are prepared to not be liked, if you are prepared to call BS when you see it, if you're prepared to kind of lay down the law, as it were, this could actually be very beneficial for you, because it's like, okay, you know what, maybe I'm not liked, but at least people know they can count on me for A, B, and C. All right. And I really resonate with that message. As you know, I'm not a Libra, but I resonate with that message so much. This is the whole argument. If you've been with me long enough, you know, I have a lot of back and forth with people about predicting death and all the rest of it. And, you know, I get a lot of flack for that. I'm never going to stop doing it because it's a part of life, right? So if you're a Libra, this full moon might produce a time where not only can you deal with your own shit, but you can kind of face up to the fact that, okay, if I'm willing to not be so acquiescent and so liked by everybody, actually, I've got a chance to really get ahead here. All right, for Scorpio, this is happening for you in your 11th house. This full moon for you is highlighting your friendship connections of all kinds, your community ties, but we're talking wider community. I would love this, right? If you're a Scorpio, throw a full moon party. Like, I really feel for you guys, for you, and who was the other one? I think it might have been Gemini. I think you guys could actually rock this. Like, it could be a lot of fun, and you personally might really be on top form. Do you know what I mean? Like, you might really just feel like, yeah, okay, I can work with this energy. It's this full moon for you is actually asking you to lighten up, both figuratively and literally, right? And so the T-square that it's setting up, which I'll get into in just a moment, I get the feeling that you might be realizing where you can be a bit intense. Scorpio, intense, groundbreaking. You get my point, right? Like, this is kind of you getting a glimpse into maybe how other people receive you and saying, okay, you know what? I can lighten this up a little bit. And this is the beauty of Scorpio energy. It really is very enlightened energy. It just knows how to play in the dark. I think one of the things that Scorpios often themselves forget, though, is that they can do the light really, really well. So find it, right? Look for it, this full moon energy, because you could really, you show up in this way, and I think it could be great for you. It's setting up some nice energy, some challenging energy for sure, but the full moon is definitely bringing surprises for everyone. And for you, the moon actually rules your 9th house. So I like this for finding new senses of truth. And also having realizations maybe about your higher ideals or beliefs, or maybe they're challenged or questioned in a way that helps you reaffirm them to yourself, which I actually kind of like, you know. I think it was Nadia Shah when she said, when faith is healthy, it questions itself. And I was like, oh, that's some shit, right? I really like that, because it's true. If it can, if your faith or whatever you believe in can stand up to you leaning on it, or stand with you leaning on it, or stand up to it being challenged without getting angry or, you know, lashing out or shouting you down or whatever, then you know that that's solid. So your full moon is setting up a T-square with Mars and obviously the sun, because the sun and the moon are always in opposite spaces whenever we have a full moon. So for you, this is happening in your 11th house and your 8th house and your 5th house, respectively. This is a full moon for you to express yourself, like to really express yourself. Loud and proud is definitely the name of the game. And for you guys, you tend to be more subdued. You're wickedly funny. You often say shit. You're just like, okay, this is probably not the time and place. But the Scorpio is going to say it, right? And this is one of the reasons that I love you guys so much. Because you will take it there and you'll have those hard conversations or the taboo subjects, and you're not afraid to get into the muck of life. And I think that's a really important part of life itself as an experience, right? It's not always light and fluffy. It does get dark and hard and painful and scary at times. And on the opposite end of that is all the other stuff. And this full moon is maybe challenging you to challenge yourself to say, okay, you know what, I can be light, I can be fluffy, and maybe this is what I need to be at this moment in time. The challenge is a T-square, right? T-squares, squares in general, they make you uncomfortable enough to need to make a change. Maybe somebody calls you out on it and says, listen, you know, I love that you have a dark side and that you know how to do all of this. Show me your light. And so this forces you to pull up on yourself. This forces you to say, actually, you know what, where is that version of me? Where is that part of me? All right. Like, I love it. I also like this for no holds barred, as if you guys ever need an invitation. Right. No holds barred, sort of kind of just sharing, right? Like just that. What I've got here for you is, what does strike me is that you could do this with reckless abandon and find that people kind of just look at you like, why are you so hyped right now? And then there's a part of you that's like, didn't you just tell me to lighten up? And now I'm showing up like you're all scared. It's kind of like, you know, Wednesday Addams smile. Do you know what I mean? Like that really creepy, like, are you actually happy or trying to creep me out? Jokes aside, Saturn's going to be trying to the South Node. This is happening between your 1st house and your 4th house. This is the last gasp, it's the last moment, right? Because Saturn moves out of Aquarius and into Pisces on the 7th. So on the same day as this full moon, Saturn's going to move out of here. So this last gasp of it, home and family are definitely getting a last glimpse from you. And I like this for you, setting some really clear guideline for what you want and need in your life when it comes to your home, your environment, or even your familial connections. This could also be that something or someone is passing out of existence. So it's possible that it could be a passing, but it could also be you releasing some kind of past stuff, right? When it comes to the family, you could finally kind of lift something out and say, okay, I'm done with that part of my life now, or the way that that narrative holds on to me. So for the sun, in Pisces, sextile to Uranus. So this is happening between your 7th house of partnerships and relationships and significant connections, your doctor, your astrologer, your Rafi, right? All 7th house stuff. With the 5th house, this is sexy, it's fun, it's sensual, it's playful. For those of you that are partnered, married, or in long-term commitments, this is gorgeous energy, right? Play around with it, have fun, invite friends over, you know, not in that, oh god, no. You know what I mean? Not in that, I know you guys are cackling right now, not in that kind of way, but like, because there's so much fun here, and this connection, this part of this whole sort of celestial picture is sexy, it's fun, it's vibrant. You and a partner could really connect here in a way that is fun and flirtatious and light. It's not really like that deep, intense kind of thing. It's you guys remembering, you know, when you were just friends, you know, when you were just mates and you used to fuck around and tease each other and do all of that. You're bringing that back in, and it's you being able to bring in the sex and the sensuality, but bring the lighter side of it as well. It's a great time to socialize. If you're single, this is a wonderful time because you could be meeting or connecting with someone through friends, through connections. If you're having a party or you're invited to a party, please go. You'll have an amazing time. Yes, Mars is squaring Neptune. It's quite a wide orb, but it's still there, right? I say a wide orb, it's not. It's like 3 degrees, but you get my point. If none of the above sort of appeals to you, just find the joy, find the creativity, put, you know, 50 bucks on a horse, do something that just kind of, you know, helps you shake off the rut and say, you know what, let me just remember that life can be fun as well. This is more about finding the fun through your connections of others though, because remember the 11th house is a community / connective energy. And then finally, I've got, if you're not doing any of the above, where do you feel ready to work with another person on creating something that feels good to you? It doesn't have to be to sell or to promote. It just has to be something that you love. Your tarot card for this is the Hanged Man, right? So one of these, because sometimes tarot gets really, really literal. What's he doing? He's just hanging around. Hang out. Have fun, surrender to the current, right? If a friend says to you, I don't know, we're going to the rainbow glitter party, Scorpio's like, oh my God, kill me now. Go, find that part of you that is expressive, that actually loves the rainbow, that loves, you know, it doesn't have to be the rainbow. Do you know what I mean? Like, find that part of you that is able to look for and toward all of the bigger and brighter energies of the world. We know it's not always like that. You guys know this better than most, right? Which is why you're able to sort of live in that space. But sometimes you gotta put the pincers down and put a fucking dress on. All right, go out, have fun. Guys, I know you're out there like, Raf, that bit doesn't work for me. No problem. I don't know, get your skinny jeans on, although can't be dealing with it, guys. And if you're above the age of 20, you should not be, okay, 24, 25. If you're above the age of 24, 25, you should not be wearing skinny jeans. Sorry, guys, but you shouldn't, all right? So I hope the other thing with the Hanged Man as well, this idea of surrendering to the current, this idea of martyrdom and self-sacrifice, What if the self-sacrifice that you're being asked to around this full moon is that your partner gets really excited about something and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing that they love. Or a friend is like, oh my God, you know, my favorite band are in, and it's like a super pop band, and you're like, oh my gosh, kill me now. Again, you could have those thoughts, but maybe you override that part of yourself to help somebody else live their joy and their truth and their freedom of expression. And by doing so, it allows you to find your happy. It allows you to find your geeky and nerdy and fun and silly, happy kind of go-lucky self, right? I like this for that. Give over to a different part of yourself, Scorpio. For Sagittarius, sorry, magpie just flew right out to my window. For Sagittarius, this for you guys is happening in your 10th house of career, which means you are, like, this is another placement of a moon, of a full moon at least, that makes you quite visible, because the 10th house is your most public self, right? If the first house is your identity and it's the person that people meet when they first meet you, your 10th house is the very carefully curated, most public version of yourself. The you on Instagram, the you at work, the career that you've built for yourself. As an example, Radiant Reality is me fulfilling my 10th house. That's what I do, all right? A full moon in a Virgo here is highlighting this. And because it's in the sign of Virgo, this might see you really start to refine or get sort of, not serious, but get a bit more clear on what it is that you're trying to present to the world, and refining and honing the vision that you have for your life, for what you're leaving behind, for your legacy out in the world. As a Sagittarius, you already think big. Because this is in the sign of Virgo, you're being asked to streamline that vision, right? So this, if you put it against a black background, it's just all going to be, right? It's just not, there's not really, but suddenly when you change the background, you start to get more definition. It's a water bottle, just in case anybody's like, what the hell is that? I hope that makes sense. This is about really honing in on that. Now, the full moon in that T-square between Mars, the sun and the moon, and then obviously you've got Neptune kind of thrown in the mix as well. This is happening between your 10th house of career, social status, public standing, your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, significant connections on that one-to-one basis, and your 4th house of home, property, and family. Home life, relationships, and your career are all starting to collide. And I'll say to you, I think it was, it might be Virgo that I said this to as well, but the feeling that I get from this is about you asking the question, where is the me in all of this? It might actually have been Gemini that I said this to. It's about really asking yourself, where are you? All of these energies of the square are mutable. You are a mutable sign, and so there's a lot of change here. There could be, with such a concentration as well in your 4th house in Pisces, home and family matters, whether it's property, whether it's family heritage, whether it's parents, elders, etc. That energy can't be ignored right now, because you've got the sun there, you've got Mercury there, you've got Neptune, which has, you know, been there forever, it feels like. And on top of that, at some point over the course of this day, Saturn is going to move into Pisces as well. So whatever's going on at home will not be ignored. But at the same time, you have to find yourself in all of this. And the 4th house being your foundations. When your foundations are solid, everything else tends to follow suit, right? And so a fear around this, or at least an experience when it comes to the home and the family, might take precedence at the moment. But then there's these other parts of you, your career and potentially a relationship, or, you know, not, as the case may be, may also come up. And so there's this question of, okay, all of these things require me to be present or for me to give, but what about the me in these situations? So your full moon is also trine to Uranus. So full moon is obviously in your 10th house. Uranus is in Taurus in your 6th house. So introducing new technology into your work might definitely be a factor. I really like this for shiny pieces of new tech and cool gadgets or platforms or interfaces and stuff that really help you zero in on what you're trying to do, on what you're trying to create. I like this taking the work up a notch. And you're doing this potentially through technology, but it might be surprise or potentially surprise communications that come in, offers of help that revolutionize your business or your approach in some way. There's a streamlining effect here that I can't really put into words, but it's like it comes, you know, with an upgrade of some sort. So Saturn is going to be trine to the South Node. So Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. It's only going to be there for a few hours more. By the time we get to the end of the 7th of October, 7th of March, it will be in Pisces, right? And it's going to be there for the next 2.5 years. But for now, it's the last connection that Saturn is making in the sign of Aquarius, 29 degrees of Aquarius, to the South Node, which is in Scorpio. And so even though it's a dissociated trine, it's still a trine. And this is a final release of some kind of past burden, maybe a revelation or a realization that allows you to say, wow, that part that I've been carrying from my history for so long, I can let it go now. I can put it down. The third house is communications, right? So communications, reading, speaking, writing, sharing, emails, all of that stuff, websites, etc. This might be a conversation that you have, the third house, with someone or something from your past, the 12th house, that really goes deep and allows you to release or let go of Saturn, the South Node, right? It might really allow you to say, okay, you know what, that part of my life is done. And by giving rise to those very words, I free myself from some sort of past burden or issue. The South Node in the 12th house, this is you releasing something big on the internal level that allows you to find your wings and to potentially break into potentially a break into a different financial bracket of some sort. So this could be, it's almost like if you dare to have the right conversations to release this thing that comes up, maybe it's been sat there for the longest time. If you have the guts to do that, this could actually be quite life-changing for you eventually. All right, nothing, you know, it's not localized. Yeah, it's all going to happen right here, right now. Sun sextile to Uranus. So the Sun is obviously in the 4th house of Pisces at the moment, and Uranus is in the 6th house. Your home sector is full, right? We've got Saturn coming in there as well. Mercury is the ruler of your 10th and the moon itself. In Pisces, it's kind of a little bit unclear. And so you might have to feel this one out rather than get into here. So stay out of there and really come, you know, bring that big mind, expansive mind that you have down into your feelings and play around in there and see how vast you really are. And when you get that understanding, you might really be able to understand what needs to shift on a day-to-day level in order to push you forward. All right, so this is kind of like a moment of self-honesty more than anything else. Your card is the Hierophant card, right? So do you know what's really funny about this, right? The Hierophant card literally, on a sort of microcosmic personal level, this card literally represents our habits, our routines, the things that we have set up like a well-oiled machine, right? So this is that. It's also, interestingly enough, it is your faith and your spirituality and potentially religion, but it also represents the structures in your life that you have built up to be solid. And so this could really show you what part of you, this full moon could be showing you what part of you that maybe is too established, maybe is too rigid, right? The Hierophant card is establishments. When you look at the card, look at what he's surrounded by, right? The pillars. The reason they're that color is to say to you, this represents the real world. But actually, how solid is that if you take out how you feel about it? Right, this is what you're really being asked or invited to kind of do. And it might also show you where you've deferred for way too long to what others think, feel, or, you know, require or need from you. Okay, So Capricorn, this for you guys is happening in your 9th house. I love the 9th house because it's, you know, in ancient astrology, they called this the house of God. I like to see it as the house that represents how you commune with the cosmos, how you connect to what you perceive to be your higher power, deity, God, goddess, Buddha, Allah, Chi, whatever you want to call it. And so the full moon is a highlight, right? And for you in the 9th house, this is highlighting your desire to learn. It's highlighting a need for truth. It's highlighting at the moment a need for you to gather or to gain new information or wisdom in some way, shape, or form that really allows you to nourish and enhance your inner being. So the moon, you know, especially in the sign of Virgo, it's exacting, it's precise, but it's also feeling. And for you personally, this might be, you get that kind of feeling or that inkling that there's something that you need to know. You don't really know necessarily what it is. You have an idea, and maybe you start to look at different courses or products or programs and stuff like that. Only you will know what it is for you, but this could see you searching further and wider than you have before. It might be a good time to open up a dialogue with the universe and ask for what you need. Relationship connections could take on a much more practical energy at this time. Work is going to be important to you, and this moon is going to highlight that. And it's also going to give you the clarity that you need in order to create a strategy for gaining the knowledge that you want to use as a platform to move forward. So the full moon in that T-square with so you've got the moon, you've got the sun, and then you've got Mars. So this is happening across your 9th house, your 6th house, and your 3rd house, right? So the moon is in the 9th, Mars in the 6th, and the sun in the 3rd, right, over there in Pisces. This T-square is a little bit deeper for you because it does bring together some of the energies of ruling your home life and, you know, wounds that might need to be addressed at the moment. It might be that you're having a lot of healing conversations, but they all have like a spiritual element to them. And so I wonder if some of the conversations that you're having, they almost take on this like, well, we were talking about this, but I could feel like something else was happening while we were having that conversation. There's something bigger and more profound playing out as we're having this conversation to mend a rift, right? Especially because the 9th house is involved, and 9th house is, you know, spirituality, but it's also vision. The 9th house is actually, you know, originally ruled by Jupiter. And so Jupiter is visionary. It is, yes, you know, potentially this could bring up legal matters for some of you as well. I can't actually gloss over that. And especially because it's a T-square, you might have to start looking at paperwork, documentation. You might start to need to pay attention to the details when it comes to the clauses in certain contracts, right? So that's one way that this could play out. There are challenges here though, because Mars is the anchor. So your personal habits and routines are what need to shift in order for you to kind of move forward. Changes are definitely coming with this moon, and how much you can accommodate these changes, I think, is going to show you, or maybe provide you with what you need in order to kind of to get out of this moon not so sort of emotionally flip-flopped. So the full moon is going to be trine to Uranus. So the full moon obviously in the 9th, and then you've got Uranus in the sign of Taurus, which for you is the 5th house. This is giving you a sense of adventure. It takes you maybe by surprise. There's a need to get into your body and to let loose. So it's kind of like you know everything is serious and needs to be addressed, but there's a part of you, like, I don't know if you've ever had this, you know, when you have like a really difficult time in life and you're like, fuck it, I'm going out dancing. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, my life's a dumpster fire at the moment, but what I need is shots, a boy and a Bacardi. Just me. Actually, I prefer a gin and a gentleman, but you know, jokes aside, do you see what I mean? Like there might be some part of you that not reckless, but you kind of like, no, I'm going to break out of this rut, right? And so that full moon trine into Uranus, it might surprise you. It might even be friendship connections that have like an international flavor. So maybe you start to build connections with yeah, like you start to build connections with people that go sort of that are further afield. So that could be really nice, especially if, you know, hobbies or common interests are involved. Potentially there's a way of making money that comes out of this, but it's not necessarily, you know, it might just be that it's a hobby. It might be that you decide to turn that hobby into a lucrative endeavor. So Saturn trine the South Node. So your ruling planet is in the sign of Aquarius, where it's still in strong dignity. So we've had 5 years of a really strong Saturn. This same day, it's going to move out of the sign of Aquarius and into the sign of Pisces. Now, for you, this is happening across the second house of, so Aquarius for you is the second house, and your 11th house. Getting rid of bad financial karma and juju. This is like you shaking off the shackles of some financial heaviness or burden. You're really starting to be released from this now. And in a lot of ways, I think this could be a real game changer for a lot of you. It might be where you get a little nudge to say, this is what needs to be let go of, right? Remember, it's the South Node in the sign of Scorpio, the sign of death and destruction and decay, among other things, right? It's not just that, but this is kind of showing you, and Saturn is limitation in the old world as well. Saturn was death. So this could really, some old financial karma or burden or history, it's like there's a new financial outlook, understanding, or destiny that's being rewritten for you here. And you just got to be open to it, right? It's about you letting go of what was in favor of what can be. Finally, the sun sextile to Uranus. So the sun in the 3rd house, Uranus in the 5th house. If you've got siblings, this could be a great time to get together. If you can surprise them, this is like, you know, you just rock up and be like, you know, I got treats, I got a bottle, get your glad rags on, bitch, we're going out. Do you know what I mean? Again, maybe just me. You know, like this could be some kind of spontaneous energy burst that you get that could be a lot of fun. It could be that you connect with neighbors and your local neighborhood as well. Doesn't have to be siblings, maybe you don't have any. But you know, it could even be like-minded locals. Actually, the sun as the ruler of your 8th house of Leo is bringing your attention to what can be done to experience your world or make it wider in some way. It's like, how do I make my personal existence bigger than it currently is? All right. Your message for this is the four of wands. This is beautiful, right? It's fun, it's vibrant, it's energetic. It asks you to find the levity in this situation. Capricorn, Scorpio, Aquarius, you know, a few others. You guys have had like some really heavy weeks, heavy months. And so now that these lighter energies are showing up, find them, latch onto them, and don't let them go until you've ridden the bloody good stuff out of them. The 4 of Wands is events, get-togethers, happy moments. It's also celebrations. And I feel like this changing of your financial karma is definitely something to celebrate. So get into it. Aquarius. So for you, this Virgo full moon is taking place in your 8th house. Now, an 8th house full moon is intense as it is because it's in the area of the chart that represents intensity, right? There are 3 of them, technically, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. Those would be the spaces in the chart that are the most intense, as I understand it. Some other people, astrologers, etc., might not agree. That's just my personal opinion. When you get going on things in a deep way, Aquarius, you can really get tunnel vision. And, you know, the beauty of being able to go into things, you know, really go into them, is that you can get a lot done, that you can glean a lot of information, right? But at the same time, this 8th house energy that you have is Virgo-like. And so this gives you that ability to really zone in on something. This is a light shining at the heart of your fears, what you have been afraid of, why you've been afraid of it. And, you know, these things really being highlighted for you at the moment, I think in a lot of ways are helping you understand how this stuff has sat in your body. So the moon rules your body. And especially because the moon is your 6th house ruler, so it really does move, really does equate to like your physical body. And so the things that you've held or stored in your body, in your physical self, you know, like I did a Vipassana retreat years ago, and it's 10 days silent meditation, no phone, no TV, no internet, no nothing, all vegan meals, you only eat twice a day, it's all raw food. Like it was intense, but it was one of the best things I ever did with my life. And one of the things that the guy that leads it, I think he's a guru, I don't think he's with us anymore, he talked about this idea that when you have a traumatic experience or something happens to you, you tie a knot of sorts in your soul. And so the process of that 10 days was basically finding out where your knots are and unpicking them, right? And so for you, this full moon in the sign of Virgo is very much that. This is about you understanding, where am I storing my trauma in my physical body? How is that trauma bleeding out into my life? What behaviors and patterns and routines and rituals have I created as coping mechanisms that now are so unconscious that, you know, I just do them, I don't really realize it? Therapy, manual or mental, you know, like literally therapy could be a really good outlet right now. Manual therapy, as in your physical self, a massage or osteopathy, acupuncture, all of that stuff, or even, you know, like therapy, sitting down and talking to somebody could all really, you know, really help. A juice cleanse, a detox, a water fast, things like this could really give you a lot of clarity right now. Another way that you could use this as well is getting a solid system in place for making your life and your world more efficient. Not exactly the sexiest of stuff, but at the same time, this is what's going to help. You could also have a really profound realization about a sexual matter, whether this is a desire of yours or somebody else's or a partner's. The reason I say this is because the 8th house is sex, sensuality, it's the taboo, it's the space in the chart where we hold our deep psychological makeup, our traumas, our fears, all the things that really get us in those deep spaces are found in the 8th. Technically, they're all found in the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. But the fact that you're having this here, the 8th house is a very intimate house. And so an 8th house full moon could really highlight your own sexual patterns, needs, desires, etc. Now, the full moon, as being a part of this powerful T-square that's set up with the sun in Pisces, the moon in Virgo, and Mars in the sign of Gemini, which is in your 5th house. So it's kind of anchoring that, right? Money matters are always on your mind more than ever around this time of year, because Pisces rules your 2nd house of money, finances, and resources. This T-square is actually a big activation of your money houses and also your creative and your pleasure zone. So there's a need to break away here, and a need to really kind of release what you like. This could see you maybe not go off the rails, but maybe you could start spending, you could start buying things or filling what you feel might be like a little bit of a hole or a gap somewhere with whatever you can get your hands on. Be mindful of that, but at the same time, this could also be that the real world demands that you have, right? So finances, money, resources, etc., are kind of teeing off with your want or your desire to kind of cut loose and just have a little bit more fun. This might be one of those moments where you kind of say to yourself, look, as much as I just want to tear away and be a bit wild and all the rest of it, I actually need to get it together right now. Could be big conversations about money with a partner or a collaborator, because remember your 8th house is other people's money as well. So taxes, inheritance, all of that kind of stuff could be talked about, mortgages, all of those things. They could bring some harsh conversations or words when it comes to money, because Mars is in Gemini. Mars in Gemini, you know, challenging disputes, harsh words, etc. In fact, is that, no, it's not that. I was going to say, but that's definitely giving me 5 of Swords vibes, right? The air is being cleared here, whether you want it to or not. Remember, the square energy makes you uncomfortable enough to do something about the situation that arises. This could also be talks around children, if you've got kids, etc. as well, or personal projects or ideas. Now, the full moon is trine to Uranus. So the full moon is in your 8th house. Uranus is in your 4th house of Taurus. House, home, and family matters are definitely to the forefront right now. You could be getting support or, you know, being propped up by a family member in a way that you really hadn't expected. It might be bringing surprise developments on the home front as well. The full moon's definitely bringing attention and feeling, right? It's a full moon, so everybody's emotions are going to be heightened, or they will congeal. Right, so this tends to be what happens. Like if somebody is emotionally aware and, you know, they're all the rest of it, or if they're not emotionally aware, that will just get more intense and they won't kind of realize it. But then you get the other type of person that's not emotionally aware, that kind of their feelings just congeal, right? They just kind of shut down. It'll be one or the other. What constitutes home for you? Is it a person? Is it a place? You might be really asking that question now. Is it a home? Is it the 4 walls that you live in? Is it the area that you live in? Is it the friends that you have in that area? Is it your family? Is it your significant other? Is it your children? Is it your pets? What and who means home to you? Is it a country even? This might be a big question on your mind at the moment. And because it's a trine energy, this is support coming in from or through the family or whoever you consider to be family that you don't expect. So that could be really nice. It could also be a time of secrets revealed. Remember, it's a full moon, a time of revealing and revelation, being shone in the house of secrets itself, the 8th house. So this could be surprising secrets that come to light, things that you didn't know or realize. There could be a revelation of some kind that you don't expect. Doesn't have to be detrimental because it is a trine, but it is, you know, whenever you try to predict Uranian energy, you're going to get something opposite. So we'll just have to see what's what. Saturn, our ruling planet, is at the last degree of our sign, so 29 degrees. It's in a trine with the South Node, which is, this is a grand release in some way, shape, or form. This is a grand release or a letting go of some kind. And the reason this is kind of pertinent is because this is the last of this energy. It's the last of the Saturnian energy, because Saturn's been in its sign that it rules for 5 years, 2.5 years in Capricorn, 2.5 years in Aquarius. On this same day, March the 7th, it will move out of the sign of Aquarius and into the sign of Pisces. It's a pretty big deal, right? So the fact that it's moving out of this space and it's currently, let's say, in the 1st house, so if you're an Aquarius ascendant, especially to a lesser degree the sun and the moon, Saturn moving out is in your sign. It's releasing a version of you that no longer exists. And the reason I say this, it's time for self-honesty, it's time for self-respect, self-reliance, it's time for determination and grit. Why do I say that? Saturn in the 1st house, it's making its last aspect in that it's going to make in Aquarius until it goes for good, well, for 30 years, is a trine to the South Node. Something about you, right? And the South Node is up there in the sign of Scorpio, which is your 10th house of career, public status. Your marital status is your 10th house. You know, what I do with Radiant Reality is my 10th house, all of that kind of stuff. Something about who you have been, a version of who you are, it goes now, right? And the strength that will come in from this ability to say that version of me no longer exists and I'm walking towards something new is going to be extremely powerful. Whether that's to deny yourself something that you know is not good for you, to release something or someone about your status in the world, this is a moment for you to say, okay, I can let this go and I can let it go with grace. I will rediscover who I am. I will redefine who I am. Because it's trying to Mercury as well, the South Node is pushing you to communicate openly and to share your dreams with those that actually matter to you. Finally, the sun in a sextile to Uranus. So the sun is in the sign of Pisces in your 2nd house of money, finances and resources, your personal monies, I might add. It's in a sextile, so creating an opportunity here somewhere with the 4th house. whether you work with homes, from homes, whether you work with homes, property, real estate, this could be an opportunity that comes in to gain more financial control over yourself, your world, and your future. It might also be a chance for you to either emancipate yourself from your financial history, or maybe even your familial money story. If you haven't had one yet, the Abundance Block Smasher session is absolutely for you, especially because you're having the full moon here. This could be a really big deal for you, right? The 8th house is Plutonian, it's Pluto/Scorpio ruled. And so for that reason, it carries that energy of transformation. The Abundance Block Smasher, if you ever had money worries, issues, troubles, money blocks, etc., trust me, we can get into it with that. So there'll be a link for that in the description box below. And your card for this, right, is the Devil card. What are you holding on to that you know definitely doesn't serve you? What patterns of behavior, right? What self-destructive, addictive, or obsessive tendencies do you have that you know you are ready to let go of and to reprogram yourself with things that are not only lighter and brighter, but things that are ultimately more nourishing and helpful for your soul, for your psyche, and ultimately for your future? Pisces, my dear, dear Pisces, last but never least, this full moon for you is happening in your 7th house. 7th house of partnerships, relationships, connections, one-on-one. This is the relationship that you have with your doctor, the relationship that you have with your, you know, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, significant other, you know, the person that you live in your home with, your doctor, your astrologer, your Rafi, right? This is the relationships that you have in your world, and this is your relationships really being highlighted. Now, the energy and the power is with you, right? Because you've got the sun in your sign, you've got Mercury in your sign, you've got Neptune, which has been there forever at this point, but you've also, at the end of this day, the 7th, you'll have Saturn come into your sign. This is a big concentration on who you are. And this full moon is putting the spotlight on your relationships to help you ask the question, not only who am I, but who am I within the relationships that I have in my world or in my life? It's quite strong for you as well. So this moon's flavor, it's really giving you a very active juxtaposition right now, because it's really asking you what you need from your partners and what your partners need from you, and seeing what is possible. You're strong right now because you've got so much energy built up in your sign. How you use that, what do you need and want from other people? This is a time for you to decide what that is and to be brave enough to ask for it. So that full moon in your 7th house, then you've got the sun in the 1st house at the moment, infusing you with light, heat, vitality, joy, abundance. You know, really infuse, like the way that I see it is when the sun comes into our sign, it basically pours all of its life-giving, healing properties and energies into us, and it infuses us. And it also brings us more attention, which, you know, never a bad thing. This is happening for you over in the 7th house, and then you've got Mars, which is in your 4th house of home, property, real estate, the people that you come from. It's also your deep emotional nature. Mars rules your 2nd house of money and also the 9th house of legalities, because Mars is the ancient ruler of Scorpio. And so the sun as the ruler of the 6th and the moon as the ruler of the 5th, this is about a longer term strategy. So an authority figure at work, or maybe even a parent, might be more demanding at this time, might need something more from you right now, and it might feel like a step too far. It might feel like something that you think, no, you know what, I haven't got that to give. What you're asking me for is impossible. What you need from me is not available, or I just flat out fucking refuse. No, right? So there's a sense here, I don't know, I feel like a lot of Pisceans might let rip on something over the course of this full moon. And I tell you, when the Pisces really loses their shit, it's quite scary. Remember, this is the 12th sign of the zodiac, right? This is where the collective stores its shit, its baggage, right? It all goes in the 12th, whether it's your chart, my chart, our chart, Pisces being the 12th sign. So when they really finally do snap, it can be quite formidable and quite scary, because it's like you see this sort of light, flowy, emotional, artistic, creative being become this really dark, heavy version of themselves. So, you know, try to hold on to yourself. But this is why, you know, and this is something that Pisces seems to do a lot. You guys are like, even though you're mutable water signs, Pisces tend to really bottle everything up. And I'm always perplexed by this, but, you know, nothing is a hard and fast rule or science, but I'm intrigued. Now, the full moon is in a trine to Uranus. So the full moon in your 7th house is trine to Uranus in Taurus in your 3rd house. If you're married, you've got a chance here to really connect deeply to a partner. If you work one-on-one with people like I do at the table, this can be a period of amazing connections, really powerful, gorgeous, talkative and transformative work could be done right now. It really, really could. If you're a Pisces and you want to get into some stuff, book a session with me. We can get into it. You know, shamelessly promoting myself. It might also be that you connect with a neighbor or a local. If you're looking for love, it's probable that you're going to find the significant other or somebody that has that potential in your neighborhood, probably right underneath your nose, maybe in like a really everyday kind of, maybe at your local shop. You know, you go there and you're like, oh, okay, you're a bit of all right. As Uranus is the ruler of your 12th house, I wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody that you've met or connected with before, but maybe you never paid attention to each other. And it's like now all of a sudden, boom, you know, Uranus comes in this connection to the full moon and says, full moon, a time of revealing things, right? Shines a light, connects to Uranus and says, hey, listen, you missed this before. Let me drop the veil so that you can see. Saturn is trine to the south node. So Saturn is currently in your 12th house of Aquarius, right? And it's making a trine to the south node in the sign of Scorpio in your 9th house. If there were ever a time that the universe is going to be communicating with you, this is definitely one of them. This is the last aspect that Saturn will make until it leaves the sign of Aquarius and comes into your sign on this same day, the 7th of March, I might add. Which means that there is, you know, Saturn rejoices in the 12th and it's in its own sign. So this is a very strong Saturn that really is doing good work for you. The South Node is a deeply spiritual point and it's in the 9th house, the house of God. You are receiving messages and connections from spiritual intelligences right now. Do not ignore them. Pay attention. This is up to you as well, to be really honest and open about what they're saying. So if the universe says to you, this is what we envision for your life, this is how we want you to move forward, this can be really good for you. And then you're like, well, you know, I don't want to upset anybody, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, or I don't want confrontation or whatever. You're actually going to be shooting yourself in the foot. It's kind of like saying to the heavens, yeah, you know, that thing that you said is really good for my life, I don't believe you, so no thanks. Obviously, you have free will. This is up to you. I'm just kind of giving you it as I see it. Finally, well, not finally, but the last part of this, it's time for you to get serious about your spiritual path now, whatever that means to you, because this is the last connection that it's making, and Saturn will be in your sign for the next 2.5 years for the first time in 30 years. All right, so this is a big deal. Like, this is where you have to start getting really serious about your spiritual practice, especially because Saturn's coming into your 1st house. It's going to start making you get more serious about things, right? This sort of airy, fairy, floaty self, that version of you is going to start to really crystallize into something potentially quite real over the next few days, you know, over the next few, 2.5 years, should I say, days. Right, so then the sun is sextile to Uranus. So if I haven't said it yet, happy damn birthday to you. I truly hope you have a wonderful solar return. Remember to feel the day of your birthday, especially if it's the 7th of March, with all of the things that you want for this next year of your life, right? This is the sun infusing you with divine wisdom, intelligence, warmth. Compassion is something you already have, but this is being amplified because it's attention that's being poured on you. The sun, as the ruler of your work life in your sign, is putting the spotlight on you. It's helping you and potentially your partner shine together. So this could be also a time where you're, where no one's hogging the limelight. You're not above your partner, you're right next to them, you're side by side, you're in it together. The truth is, with such a conglomerate of planets and powers and energies in your sign, you're going to shine that much brighter whether you want to or not. But it's like there's an openness and a sharing here that doesn't get in the way of relationships. Speaking clearly and honestly is what's going to win. All right, so, or that's what's going to maybe seal the deal of some kind. All in all, I think this could be really, really nice for you. And it will be interesting to see how it plays out. So your card, you literally can't make it up. Look at this, right? It's the Lovers card. How amazing is that? The fact that you've got the Lovers, one, it does suggest that love, relationships, partnerships are definitely to the forefront, as are some of the decisions that are going to help you move your life ahead and forward in ways that are truly brilliant, in ways that are truly good for you. I actually really love this. There's a solid energy behind this Lovers card, as well as your ability to make choices and decisions now. And it's not that you don't care how they affect others. It's just that you're not allowing how you feel about other people and not wanting to hurt them or override them or whatever. You're not letting that get in the way of you getting ahead, right? You're no longer self-sacrificing in order to kind of placate or put others above yourself. So all in all, it could be really nice. With that said, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Have a wonderful Virgo full moon. Let me know in the comments how it shapes up, how it speaks to you. I will see you in the comments. Thank you so much for all of your support. Take care, and I'll see you soon.